Released on May 1st, 2002 to critical acclaim, Morrowind is the third game in Bethesda's Elder Scrolls series and beloved by many. And I've never played it. Well, that's technically a lie. When I was in middle school, a friend came over with a copy telling me how I absolutely had to play it. So, we sat down, booted it up on the Xbox, arrived in Vvardenfell via boat, and promptly went outside to ride bikes. That's it. That's the extent of my experience with this game. I didn't even make it to character creation. So, today I will be playing it for the first time and seeing if it lives up to all the hype I have heard. My first real Elder Scrolls experience was Oblivion, which I adore to pieces. I'm going to do my best not to compare it to that or Skyrim, as it's simply not fair because engines and technology evolves, allowing for greater and more grandiose set pieces and such, but it will be interesting to see what I would assume are less robust systems that I am used to and honestly take for granted as the default. Originally, I had planned on playing it right out of the box. I've owned the Steam version for years, but anyone who has attempted to play an older game on newer hardware knows it's usually not as simple as just turning it on. I had to fight with my recording software, and even when I did get the two to play nice, the game looked like this. All that is to say, instead of playing the original version, I'm going to be playing OpenMW just so I can record it in a nice resolution for you all. The launcher has a lot of settings that can be toggled on and off, but I didn't do any of that in hopes that the experience would then be completely vanilla sans the resolution thing. Oh, also, if you like the content, don't forget to subscribe. It helps the channel out way more than you know, and maybe comment what game you want to see me play. I've never touched like 95% of Metacritic's top 100, so give me those suggestions on must-play games. So without further ado, come with me on my very first adventure through the lands of Vvardenfell as I see if the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind is any good. The game opens with a cutscene, first showing a quote stating each event is preceded by a prophecy, but without a hero, there is no event. Then by some backstory. A prisoner sent under guard and without explanation to Morrowind, ignorant of the role they were to play in this nation's history. I assume this is about the player character. Then Daedric letters fill the background while an unknown woman speaks to us. She says we were taken from the Imperial City prison, which surprised me. Not because, wow, every one of these games seemed to start with us being a prisoner, but because it was the Imperial City prison, which is also how the next installment starts. She tells me to fear not, as we are the chosen one and she's watching over us. Then some Daedric text translates to English and reads, "Many fall, but one remains." Before I was able to make heads or tails of any of that, another voice is heard telling me to wake up, but questions why I'm shaking and asks if I'm okay. Perhaps it was a dream? A nightmare? The voice trying to awaken me was this dark elf, Giab. He states we've arrived in Morrowind and asks us our name. I reply rather curtly, level 0. A strange name to be sure, but he shows no mind and says the guard should let us go now that we've arrived. And as if on cue, the guard arrives to escort me off the boat. And the moment I step out, I get my first ever look at the world of Vvardenfell, and what a look it was. It almost looks like a swampy area with some possibly dead trees and murky water, but what really stood out to me was this completely alien creature in the distance. It looked like some kind of massive insect. It's relatively close to the city without anyone freaking out, so I'm assuming it's not hostile, but what is it? As much as I wanted to just run over to it, the guard down the dock presents me with my character customization. My first real character in Oblivion and Skyrim were both dark elves, and I figured that was extra fitting given where we were. So I made the prettiest dark elf this side of the Cyrodiil River and proceeded into the census office. Inside, I speak with Sokukius Ergala, and he tells me I need to put some information in before I can be released. Perhaps it's a little on the nose, but I would say it's a pretty short and clever way in universe to get the player to decide on their class and star sign. He states that there are 3 ways to do this. Either he can ask me some questions and I can answer, ultimately letting the game suggest what I should be, simply tell him the information, which would be me picking from a list of classes, or I can put the information in myself, which would be making my own class. I heavily debated making the class myself, but wasn't even sure what skills there would be, so I ended up going with the first option, and he asked me some interesting questions. Think like the trolley problem, except you're watching the guy watch someone hold the lever, what would you do, that kind of thing. In the end, it told me I should play as a barbarian, and that, I've never once fully played as a melee-focused character in any of these games. In hindsight, perhaps I should have went with it just for the sake of new experiences, but I decided instead to pick from the list of pre-built classes. Normally, I like to play a spell sword, that is to say, someone that is able to use powerful destruction magic, but not unable to win in a sword fight either. I fully expected that there would be such a class, and there is, specifically named Spell Sword. They have major skills in block, restoration, destruction, alteration, and long blade? And minor skills in blunt weapons, enchant, alchemy, medium armor, and axe. Already I'm noticing things that I'm unfamiliar with. First off, long blade? Is there a difference in blade length here? And there are only 5 minor skills listed. I know for a fact that there is also marksman because it showed up in the Dark Elf character creator. Does that mean that there are other skills that are just, like, completely unusable to my class outside of the major and minor ones? Well, I guess that would be something I would figure out along the way. The next choice is to pick a star sign, and I didn't read through all of them, but they are mostly the same as I'm familiar with. Not 100% the same, but nearly there as their Oblivion counterparts. For example, the mage boosts maximum magicka by 0.5 times the intelligence stat, and the warrior flat boosts attack. I ended up picking the mage because I think magic is cool, and with that, my character has been created. Level 0, the spell sword Dark Elf, ready to start my adventure. I'm told to continue through to the next building and talk to Celis Gravius. On my way, I pick up a dagger, a fitting starting weapon, I suppose, and learn how to actually equip things, which is to drag them from my inventory onto my character, which is old school, but I kinda like it. And I can swing the blade almost unreasonably fast. I have a feeling quick small weapons are going to be the best I can use. I practiced a bit on the barrel outside, but when I checked on the inside, there was an engraved Ring of Healing. An enchanted item, but it's got an on-use ability instead of something passive. I guess I have to equip it, then use it, but that's fine. It's 1 to 5 health for 1 second with 20 charges. Seems pretty good. Inside, I talk to the captain and get my first real look at how dialogue functions in this game. Certain topics are highlighted blue and can be clicked on to get more information. The same topics, as well as other relevant ones maybe learned somewhere else or in an earlier conversation, show up on the right side, letting you pick from those topics at any point. There's also a persuasion button and an I like you gauge, but the game explicitly says if you aren't good at persuasion, don't try it, otherwise the NPCs will start to dislike you. I ask him about Morrowind and he confirms that is in fact where I am. Helpful, I suppose, and that it was the Emperor himself who demanded my release. Then he gives me my duties, which is this game's lingo for quests. I am to seek out Caius Cosadis in the city of Balmora and deliver him a package. He tells me how to get to the city, but also suggests I take a Silt Strider and hands me 87 septims, honestly a bit of a weird number, but it's fine. I step outside and am told how to use my journal and nudge towards the nearby trade house to buy some supplies, and with that, the training wheels come off. I am now free to roam the land how I pleased. Good luck, says the game. Thanks, I'll probably need it. I did decide it would be a good idea to check the trader, so I asked for a little bit of advice, and I was told I should get a weapon and buy as much armor as I can possibly wear while still being able to run away from trouble. Wow, is Vvardenfell really that hostile of a land? I took his advice and bought a couple pieces of chitin armor, the chest and the boots. It should be enough to keep me covered in any early game encounters like with rats and such. I decided I would take the captain's advice and use the Silt Strider services. Luckily, I was still able to afford the fare after my short spinning spree, and this brings me to Balmora. My journal tells me to find Caius. I should ask around the corner club called Southwall. One thing I wasn't prepared for is how Khajiits look in this game. That's kind of terrifying in like a I love it kind of way. Speaking with the owner of Southwall, I am told Caius can be found up the hill on the north edge of town. Out the front door, not the upper door, right up the stairs, then left at the top and down to the end of the street. Reporting to Caius, I am immediately named a novice in the blades. Wait, what? I have no idea of the importance of the blades in Arena or Daggerfall, but the blades are like the right hand of the Emperor, his personal guards. So why am I, the random prisoner that was shipped off to a different country, initiated into the guild like that? Without any works or proof that I'm not like, you know, a cutthroat assassin or something. Perhaps I just radiate main character energy? I don't know. At any rate, I asked for my orders and I'm told I should probably go out and make a name for myself, work for the Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, the Imperial Cult, or Legion, whatever those are, or just, you know, go stab some wolves until I am competent with a blade. He also gives me 200 drakes, and tells me to buy some equipment with it. Now, I probably should have heeded his advice, you know, done a little bit of adventuring before actually taking on the orders, but I was interested in where this whole blades thing goes. So I inquired further, and he told me that my first official order was to go to the Fighters Guild and ask Hasfat Antibolus about the Nerevarine secret cult and the 6th House secret cult. None of those words mean anything to me, so as expected, I am interested. Antibolus wants me to do a little favor for him first before he gives me the information. Fair enough. I am told to go to some nearby Dwemer ruins and find a Dwemer puzzle box. To get there, all I have to do is head south out of town past the Siltstrider port, cross the bridge over the Odai River, at the signpost head north towards Caldera, immediately on the right there is a signpost for Molag Mar, turn right, head uphill, and cross an ancient Dwemer bridge. The entrance is just past the bridge on the south side. With that information in hand, I set out. Now you, dear viewer, might be wondering, why am I going into so much detail about how to get to these places? That's because that's all there is. In newer games, the quest giver might say something like, I need you to take out the bandit leader, he's holed up in some ruins east of town. And then it would mark on your map where the ruins are exactly, and maybe even have a floating arrow on your screen something like 200 meters away. Not Morrowind. If you're lucky, they will mark the location on your map, but 9 out of 10 times they just give you directions on how to get there, or even less, some of them straight up say they have no idea how to get there. Ask someone who knows. Who should you ask? They don't know that either. It's very immersive, which is reviewer talk for I like it and hate it at the same time. I did love walking around and exploring the world, but the lack of direct fast travel... Listen, I'm sure someone will say, "Huh, you young whippersnapper, you got it easy. Back in my day, we walked across Vvardenfell uphill both ways," or something, but it did get a little bit tedious. Especially because I move at a snail's pace even while sprinting, which, by the way, drains your fatigue. And no, I didn't realize how bad that was until much later, but anyway, I won't keep being so specific about the directions. I was just trying to drive home how the game asks you to locate things. Once I finally reached the bridge, I spot a man, and I thought he was a friend, but it's time for me to get my first taste of combat. The man can summon a skeleton, but if I just swing my dagger at it, it dies really quick, I guess. But he just kept summoning them over and over, and before I knew it, I was dead. And then back at Caius's house. The game doesn't autosave, a lesson that, despite learning the hard way, still takes me multiple failures to finally get it. So, once again, I head to the Fighters Guild and get my quest information, then headed back to the bridge to try again. This time, I spotted what I can only describe as like a dragon, and I hope if it attacks, that guy will be on my side temporarily. This time around, I knew I should just attack the caster, but he kept backing away, and his movement speed is much higher than mine. It was difficult to keep up with him, but even as I landed the killing blow, I also died. I'm not sure how that happened, but it did. Fortunately, I remembered to save just before the bridge. But I did even worse this go around. How is the first enemy of the game giving me so much trouble? I loaded the original autosave from a moment ago and decided if I couldn't get close, I would outrange him, so I bought a short bow and some arrows as well as a couple pieces of armor in case things go south. I snuck up the bridge and let an arrow fly, landing on its mark, dealing not very much damage. I'd hoped I would be able to take him out before he got close to me, but then all of my arrows missed, like over and over. Even when I was super close to him, like the arrows just curved around his body. I still had not figured out how to use that ring I found, but I got lucky and he missed his swing, allowing me to land a fire bite and bring him down. It should not have been this difficult to fight one enemy, the first enemy, no less. I rested to get my health back, but I was suddenly attacked in the middle of the night. This definitely caught me off guard, but the attacker wanted to stay in melee range, so I just kept setting him on fire until I ran out of magicka. Turns out, this is a Dark Brotherhood assassin, and their gear is way better than mine, so you better believe I took it. Finally, I am able to make progress. I pulled the crank like instructed, opened the doors to the Ancient Dormer Rune, and stepped inside. Nearly immediately, I was assaulted by two guys, which was extremely worrisome as I struggled with only one earlier, but I got lucky and one of the two fell off the side, allowing me to 1v1 each of them. Thus, I began scouring the runes looking for a tiny puzzle box no bigger than my fist. I gotta say, the melee combat feels like an afterthought. You just mindlessly mash the attack button and sometimes your attacks land. It's the same for the enemies. They have a chance to miss, though it seems less frequent than my own, but at least they attack much slower. I ended up relying on magic a lot, but the problem with that is magicka doesn't automatically regenerate, meaning if I run out, I am forced to use my little dagger, and that is about as efficient as giving the enemies a paper cut. You can rest to regain magicka and health, but the can't rest while enemies nearby range is kinda massive in this game, so I found myself running in and out of new areas just to sleep. After torching my way through a few enemies, I happened upon a door that was trapped. Well, that was new. And of course, my last autosave was a while ago. How am I missing these swings? He's right in front of me. Surely I'm missing something, right? If this was the totality of the combat, people would have complained. Also, another trap door. I guess I should stop putting my hands on unknown objects. This time I somehow got stuck in the level geometry. I can safely say I've never had this much trouble on any introductory quest in any game ever. Fortunately, I did find a repair hammer, though it took me a while to figure out how to actually use it. You gotta drag it onto your portrait, which will then open a new window that lets you repair things. I wandered around these ruins for what felt like an eternity looking for this puzzle box, and at one point I went to rest and was assaulted by another Dark Brotherhood assassin. Why are these guys hell-bent on trying to kill me? I only just got here. Oh well, I can at least replace some of my armor. My search eventually led me to a locked door, and I thought it must be in here. The game wants to teach me about the security skill. So I equipped a lockpick, literally, and used it on the door. Lock too complex. I guess I can't break in? Wait, does that mean that this quest is incompletable? That's kind of brutal. I mean, I knew that this game is old and has some ancient ways of thinking, but failing a quest, the starting quest no less, because you can't pass a skill check, is kind of insane. After about another 30 minutes, I was almost ready to give up, but then I remembered in the entrance area, the two guys that attacked me came from the opposite direction, so with what little hope I could muster, I checked that area out. There was a man with a shield, I think, but I quickly dispatched him and there it was, sitting on a shelf inconspicuously, was the Dwemer puzzle box. At this point, I had been playing for an hour and a half, but I had done it. I had collected the first item on my way to, save the world? Is that what I'm doing here? I'll need to pay more attention to figure that out, I guess. At any rate, I go to return to Belmora, and when I stepped outside, there was a sandstorm. This was awesome. I remember Oblivion having rain, which was neat, but a whole sandstorm is wild. It makes me question why there wasn't one in Oblivion, but thinking about it, the lush greens of Cyrodiil wouldn't really lend itself to the harsh sand flying around. I guess it could have gone in the realm of Oblivion, but I digress. Speaking of rain, after the sandstorm subsided, it began to rain and it just added to the immersion of walking back to the city. Why does that Argonian walk like he just shit his pants? I mean, don't get me wrong, all of the walk cycles look kind of funny, but Argonians and Khajiit look like they have a sizable investment in depends. I love it. Well, whatever, I turn the puzzle box over and get the information about the 6th house that Caius asked for, but unfortunately Antibalus knows little about the Nerevarine and says he should ask Sharn Gramuzgob about it. My gamer sense tells me that I'll probably have to do that. First though, I sell my spoils from the dungeon crawl as well as buy an iron saber. Then I spoke with a guard about the Dark Brotherhood. Listen, the Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, and Thieves Guild do not interest me really, but I would love to join the Dark Brotherhood and figure out why they're trying to kill me. I was told to speak with Epilus Macius and Ebonheart to learn more, but unfortunately Ebonheart wasn't a location I could ask about, so I'm on my own to find it. I tried asking the Siltstrader Cabbie and some other guards, but no one could point me anywhere. Then, as I was crossing a bridge, I was suddenly spoken to, someone claiming they were a dreamer delivering a message from Dagoth-Ur. They didn't say much else, but that is ominous. Who is Dagoth-Ur, and why contact me? I returned to Caius with the information, and just as expected, I am now to meet up with Sharn, I can't say her last name, and ask about the Nerevarine. Before that, though, I take a well-deserved rest, except it seems I had a rather peculiar dream. A tall figure adorned with a golden mask led me through the dead, but as if it were a wedding ceremony. I tried to cry out, but without breath, I could not. That's interesting, but I'm sure it's nothing. So I make my way over to the Mages Guild and locate Sharn the Orc. She says she will tell me what I want as long as I complete an errand for her. I'm to head to the Andrano Ancestral Tomb and pick up the skull of Levlu Andrano. She says the tomb is south of the city of Peligade, and that I should take an enchanted blade as some spears are immune to normal weapons. With Fireblade in hand, I set out. This is where the game truly got to me. The world feels so alien. I mean, look at that thing. What is that? And there are these giant mushrooms just... Morrowind's game world feels so much more like a D&D fantasy, or at least what I think when I think that kind of fantasy. Particularly when compared to Oblivion and Skyrim. I mean, don't get me wrong, the harsh mountain ranges of Skyrim and the lush forests and swamps of Cyrodiil are gorgeous, but comparing those worlds to Vvardenfell feels kinda wrong. The creatures of the former two are like wolves, deer, giants. But in this game, you have mutant ant dogs, massive beetles, and what looks like roided out giant mole rats. I mean, they really wanted to sell the whole strange land thing, and they succeeded. On my travels, I happen across Marie Armin, who tells me that her jewels were stolen by a bandit named Nelos Onmar, but the way she's talking, it wasn't only the jewels. It seems she has become enamored with her robber, and would like me to seek him out and see if he is interested. You know what? Love stops for no one. Okay, I accept your quest. Fortunately, he's in the city of Peligade, so it's on the way. When I arrive, the local guard points me to the tavern, and inside is the lovable bandit Nelos, who is a little surprised by Marie's sudden confession, but he admits he felt a spark too. As such, he requests that I return to her with a note. But you better believe I snooped a bit and read it first. Oh, it's actually a love confession of sorts. Well, alright then. I return with a note and Marie is thrilled. She tells me if I'm ever in Tel Brenora, I should meet with her friend, and that's that, so I return to my quest at hand, heading down to get a skull. Locating the tomb, I dive inside and my first enemy is a ghost. Of course, my iron saber does nothing to it, but Firebite easily overpowers it. However, the same can be said for me. The next enemy I run into is a mutated zombie-like creature, and it gets the better of me, sending me all the way back to Caius' house I forgot to save. Some good news is while looking for a quick save button, I found the quick equip menus, so that's nice. This time I started Marie's quest, but figured I would need to come back this way, so I didn't finish it just yet, instead heading straight for the tomb. I tried using the Firebrand enchanted blade on the ghost, but it just didn't work. It wasn't giving me a "this weapon has no effect" message, but I just never hurt it at all, no matter how many times I swung at it. Again, what in the world is this combat? Well, Firebite it is. And this time around I managed to take down the Skinwalker and his skeletal buddy, so progress. Off another skeleton, I grab an iron shield. I thought in order for the block to work, you had to charge your weapon swing as it brings the shield up in front of you, but that's just aesthetic, and it turns out the block works on a % chance every hit. Eventually, I find the skull, but weirdly enough, my journal doesn't update when I pick it up, so I was worried it wasn't the right skull, despite it literally being named Skull of Lavu Andrano. I just had no choice but to trust it was the correct one, I guess. Now you might think I would return the skull to get the information, but on my way here I passed a couple road signs and they pointed me towards Ebonheart, and let me tell you, my curiosity was too strong. I had to go see the Dark Brotherhood and join. Heading out, I ran into Nellis Lindo, who requested a kiss from me? I thought this might start some crazy quest line, but no, all it does is reveal that I'm easy. On my way I was attacked by a worm and saw some jellyfish monsters. One thing I do want to point out is the soundtrack of this game. The main theme in particular, Nerevar Rising, is just absolutely wonderful. It's not as bombastic or energetic as the 4th and 5th installments in the series, but it's still a beautiful piece that fills me with a sense of wonder and adventure. It plays from time to time while traveling in the overworld, and every time it comes on I honestly hope I don't get into another encounter as that stops it. I just kinda want to walk through the strange land while it's playing. Lost in the wonder of Vvardenfell, I eventually find my way to Ebonheart, where I seek out Epilis Mattius, and he tells me activity from the Dark Brotherhood is basically unheard of out here, but if I truly have been targeted, and am feeling particularly suicidal, I can speak with Asene Rain about transport to Mournhold. After being magicked away, I speak with a guard, and they say rumor has it the Dark Brotherhood is in the sewers beneath the Great Bazaar. I'm so close to the answers and my initiation, I can taste it. I do a bit of running around and I manage to find the entrance to the sewers, and then at the end of some tunnels with ghosts and skeletons and all sorts of nasty creatures, I find it. The Dark Brotherhood hideout. But of course, I was marked. They want me dead. There is no, "Ha, so you managed to find us? This was your first test." No, it's just assassin after assassin attempting to squeeze the marrow from my bones. They resist fire, or so it would seem, as my Firebite spell does very little damage. As long as I'm not attacked in a group, I should be fine. Okay, this is a problem. At first I tried to fight fair, but it was simply too much, so I loaded a save and learned how to read a scroll that was the equivalent of a tactical nuke. However, their fire resistance really helped them, but in the end, with the use of the engraved ring that I finally figured out how to use, I was able to power through, taking out the quad. This was not enough to deter me though. I needed answers. I fought my way through dozens of assassins, and after each fight I needed to back off and rest to regain my health and magicka. Deeper in, I found a book titled Sit This, and it gave me a level and alteration, allowing me to level up in the nearby bed. I decided to go with more strength, agility, and speed. I hope that was the right call. I ended up fighting here for so long, my equipment was on the verge of breaking. Thankfully, on the way in, I checked out the shops and noted an armorer, so I could probably repair my stuff. However, did you know that resting in a city is illegal? I didn't until now. Thankfully, I noticed before clicking the button, but why though? What's the reason behind that? Well, whatever, I just rested in the sewers and then repaired my stuff. Unfortunately, it had been so many rest cycles that things had respawned. On the upside, I am now, at least relatively, stronger given my level ups and gear repair. And my friends, at this point you would be pleased to know I had figured out that mashing the attack button as fast as possible is not actually how you want to handle the combat. You gotta charge up the attack to get more damage. Still miss a lot of my swings though, but at least when I did hit, it was pretty decent. Also, somewhere in my mass carnage, I realized that there is a difference between short and long blades, and that's probably related to why I couldn't hit anything with my dagger or the fire blade. I still kept the latter, obviously because enchanted is better than not, but I started to focus primarily on long blade as it's my major skill. And all of that information is fine and dandy, but it didn't do anything when I entered this room. What just happened? I tried again, but whoever that NPC was, I just couldn't handle them. They had some kind of enchanted blade that just absolutely obliterated my health. I could not kill them. I didn't stand a chance. So I didn't know what to do. I had made it a mission to come all the way out here, learn why the Dark Brotherhood wanted me dead, and see about joining them, but this one single NPC with their dagger of death just made that plan come to a grinding halt. The good news is though, I had cleared out so many assassins that I got another level, and this time I went for strength, agility, and endurance. But that extra 3 health wasn't going to do anything. I had no choice but to retreat with my tail between my legs. Honestly, I was quite disappointed with the way that turned out, but I literally couldn't do anything, so I got magically transported back to Ebonheart and made a quick stop in Peligade. But before I could get in, I was attacked by what I could only describe as a dinosaur. It was far more vicious looking than it actually was, however, dealing very little damage. I guess that is a good thing, all things considered. Anyway, I tell Nellos about Marie, and he gives me a note. I turn the note over and then leave, making my way back to Belmora, where I turn the skull over to Sharn, who then finally tells me about the Nerevarine cult. It would seem the Ashlanders, who I have gathered are the Dunmer natives to Morrowind, believe a long-dead hero, Nerevar, will be reborn as the Nerevarine to fulfill an ancient promise. The reborn hero will cast down the false gods of the Tribunal, drive the Outlanders from Morrowind, and restore the ancient ways. At first I wondered if I was the hero, but surely not, as I'm an Outlander, so how would that work? Before turning the notes over to Caius, I stopped at the Outfitter and sold Meldor my weekend Dark Brotherhood gear, and when I re-entered the shop, I guess he liked them. My next task is to journey to the city of Vivec and interview 3 individuals, a Thieves Guild operative, a Morag Tong agent, and a Temple priestess. I probed a little about the people I am to speak with, in particular Julia, the Argonian Morag Tong assassin. This is because I want to join the Morag Tong. I don't know nothing about him, but oh boy, here I go killing again. Unfortunately, Caius bluntly says, I have no idea how to join them, but I am hopeful that Julia will be able to point me in the right direction. I decided to read the note Caius wrote me about the 3 people, and I am glad I did because for Mira's section, the priestess, it explicitly says do not ask anyone at the Hall of Wisdom and Justice about her. Obviously, my first plan was to go there and immediately ask the first NPC I found to point me in the right direction, but there might be some kind of consequence if I do that, so I guess I'll just have to stare at everyone like my in-game character can see their name above their head like I actually can. With that, I took the Silt Strider to Vivec and began my search. First, I looked around the foreign quarter for the Morag Tong assassin. Not intentionally, it just happened to be the first building at the entrance of Vivec. I found Julia surrounded by some racist Dark Elves who have clearly never read proper literature, and they are stopping him from going to his friend's bookstore. Julia asks if I can speak on his behalf and perhaps get them to leave him alone, but I should be ready in case something goes south. I attempted to intimidate one of the thugs, and it worked, and I thought that was it. I didn't realize there were 2 other thugs behind me that also needed persuading, so when I said we were good to travel, we're most certainly not good to travel. It wasn't really much of a fight, but once they were dealt with, Julia and I can make it to the bookstore. As long as he understands personal space. Once in the store, Julia tells me all about the Ashlanders and the 6 houses. He explains that there have been many false incarnates, ones who claim to be the Nerevarine, but they've all failed. Many say that shows the prophecies are false, but to the Ashlanders it is the opposite. It strengthens the idea that the true Nerevarine will be born one day. After learning much about the prophecies, I also ask about the Morag Tong, to which I am told 2 things. If I wish to know more, I need to seek out the book called The Black Glove, and also that I should never confuse the Morag Tong with the Dark Brotherhood. The latter sold their traditions for profit. Well, I murdered half their ranks, so maybe I helped or something. Unfortunately, the bookstore we are standing in does not have a copy of The Black Glove, but I will keep an eye out for it at any of the traders going forward. The next individual I speak with is Adhiranir, the Thieves Guild Khajiit over in the St. Olms Canton. But first, I'm not ashamed to admit this, it took me like 10 minutes to figure out how to get down from here. It was dark, so I couldn't see the slope tunnels at all, so I literally just kept running around the outside thinking to myself, I definitely came in on this floor, I remember seeing this layout this way, so how do I get down? Yeah, I am the smart. In trying to figure out how to leave, I ended up in the canal works where I saw a friendly orc. Or what I thought was friendly, as he attacked me the moment I got close. Inside the room he was guarding was a heavily armored warrior and a mage. This was a tricky battle. I wasn't able to take down the warrior before the mage zapped my health down, and if I focused on the mage, the warrior would get too many free shots in at me. Ultimately, I abandoned the melee strat and instead went for pure fire blast on that orc mage. The moment he was dead, I would step outside, causing the warrior to forget that I ever existed and wait until my wounds healed up. Then I fire blasted the warrior until I was almost out of magicka, used Hearth Heal, and proceeded to swing at him until he stopped moving. Was it worth it? No, because as soon as I picked up the heart on the shrine, a Dromora spawned, and what do you mean my sword doesn't affect it? I was forced to use my short blade on it to do some kind of meaningful damage as I wanted to keep my magicka for the heals. At some point I stepped back outside, but I couldn't rest as it would restore the Dromora's health as well. Instead, I was just waiting for my fatigue to come back. Then with some good luck, I somehow prevailed. Gotta say, I was not expecting a Daedra to attack me, or the orcs, or even a shrine to a Daedric lord beneath the city. There wasn't even anything useful in the room, just a couple of scrolls and locked chests. I gave up trying to figure out how to get down normally and decided to just parkour myself over the ledge, then find my way back up, and I felt really stupid that it was these ramps that I kept missing. Eventually, I make my way over to St. Holmes Canton and immediately run into this man, Duvanis Platoris, who claims he is looking for his friend, a Khajiit named Adhiranir. We are also looking for this individual, but I was told to trust no one, as no one here will trust me. I bluntly tell him no, I do not know where she is, and I keep my eye on him. I then attempt to bribe someone to tell me about her location, but the bribe actually backfires and lowers their disposition towards me, which I didn't even know that was possible. Fine, take more money, you cheapy cheapskate, now tell me what I want to know. Apparently, Adhiranir is staying out of sight because there is a census and excise agent around. If I had to guess, it was probably that guy from before. Regardless, I can find my friend in the underworks. I locate Adhiranir, and of course she won't talk unless that agent is taken care of. I feared that would be the case, but I also kind of assumed I couldn't do anything about him until Adhiranir herself told me I needed to. No one actually told me Duvanis was the agent, but I had a hunch as he asked about her, and I lied to his face saying that she took a gondola back to the mainland. He believed me. I'm gonna be half honest, I expected him to follow me back down and say like, "Huh, I knew you were lying," and then I would have to permanently silence him, but that didn't happen. He straight up just believes me and left. Adhiranir tells me that smugglers are working for the 6th house because they pay well, but normally the smugglers are loudmouths and bragging, but they're all hush-hush and it's very suspicious. To be honest, I'm not sure how this information will help, but I guess it does confirm that the 6th house exists? The last individual I need to speak with is Mara Milos, but again, I cannot let anyone know that I am looking for her. Eventually, I locate her in the library and we find a quiet place to talk. Aside from walking about 10 meters to be out of earshot of anyone, I don't really have to do anything for Mira, and she tells me what I want to know about the Nerevarine cult. Basically, the temple revere Nerevar as a saint and a hero, but the prophecies of his reincarnation are outlawed and punished as wicked heresy. There is a group called the Dissident Priests who dispute the temple's doctrine of the Nerevarine prophecies. They outline it in a book called Progress of Truth, and she suggests I get a copy of the book for Caius. The library here has one, but it's guarded so it won't be easy to take it. However, she knows that some booksellers in Vivec don't mind trading in outlawed items. Perhaps I can find one that way. Before leaving, I of course check the library for the Black Glove, but find nothing. As such, I end up back in the Foreign Quarter at the bookstore from before, and oh, would you look at that, a copy of The Progress of Truth. I return to Caius with everything I have learned, and he tells me that he needs time to read and digest, and that I should go do work for the guilds or just freelance. He actually means that too. When I asked him about orders, he flat out said he's not ready for me and I need to go do something, shopping or sightseeing even. Now, I assume that this is just a timer, like if I were to wait a day he would be ready, but I feared it's as good a time as any to do a little training. If I didn't, things would only get harder. Normally, I would be very keen to learn about the Mages Guild, but because magic doesn't regenerate in this game natively, if I put all my eggs in that basket, then had to fight something magic immune, I would be, as the doctors call it, ready for a raw colonoscopy. So instead, I figured I would train my Longblade skill doing a little work for the Fighters Guild. So I head on over and talk to Edis Fireeye about joining. My first contract is to take care of an infestation of cave rats. She also says I'm allowed to take things from the guild chest, so I help myself to basically everything. I find Drarain Thelis' house across the river and she tells me all about her rat problem. She's mainly concerned that they will eat her pillows. You know, coming from Oblivion with the whole Rat Fighters Guild quest, this makes me chuckle. Anyway, I take care of the rat problem, no problem, and report back. The next contract is to take care of some egg poachers. Apparently Kwama eggs are, one of the few exports worthwhile for Morrowind, so I need to kill the egg poachers. This particular quest felt extra fantasy to me. I don't exactly know how to explain it, but the dark cave being lit up by the glowing egg pods while being attacked by grubs and not attacked by this worker, animal. It's not really a special quest, but it feels very Morrowind for some reason. Deeper into the mine, I find the 2 egg poachers where I proceed to bludgeon them to death with my not-so-sharp iron saber. Edis Fireeye tells me that the next contract is to go out and kill 4 Telvanni agents that are responsible for thefts and disappearances. She then gives me their names, thankfully, and tells me where to find them. But before setting out though, I take a nice little nap. Or so I thought. It turns out I had another weird dream. This time I was dead, but touching myself, which caused myself to wake up? What did Todd Howard mean by this? Well, what I can tell you is because of the dream, I didn't actually get healed, so I rested again, and had another dream. A tall man called out to me, but when he touched me, it terrified me. I tried to escape, but I couldn't move. The figure kept smiling and talking, but it felt more like a spell was being cast instead of conversation. When I woke up, I couldn't recall how the dream ended. Just like in real life, I can't even get a good night's sleep. Fireeye told me to use the Mages Guild teleportation services, so I actually ended up joining the Mages Guild. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but why not? I do, however, buy Frostbite and Shock, that way I have more than one elemental damage dealer in the event things resist fire. Also a much weaker healing spell, that way I don't lose like half my magicka trying to not die. With that taken care of, I pay my fee and am whisked away to Caldera, where I ask how to get to the Ebony Mines. Apparently, I could try climbing over the ridge to get there, but it's too steep for most. What does that mean? Is there a hiking skill in this game? Because at this point, I would believe it. Well, I decided to follow the not mountainous direction and make my way to the mines, but on the way I encountered a nearly naked Nord. Turns out he was robbed by a witch. Well, we can't have that, can we? So I agree to help him find this witch and get his beloved axe back. One of my few complaints with this game is that when an NPC offers you a quest like this, you can only accept or decline. You can't say, hey, give me a moment, which is especially important when some NPCs want you to escort them somewhere. Like, I don't even know where that place is, at least let me check my map before agreeing to take you halfway around the world, please. I actually found a couple of other NPCs nearby, one of which is Pimini, who offers me a deal. If I take her to Narmak, she'll give me the Boots of Blinding Speed, and let me tell you, the other big complaint I have is how slow I walk everywhere. As such, this was tempting, but like I literally just said, I have no idea where this place is, and I'm already helping nearly naked Ned the Nord over there, so I decline the offer. Eventually, I do find the witch, but she claims to be a healer. Her side of the story is that she hired Ned to protect her, but he was getting a little too friendly, so she cast a sleep spell on him and took all of his stuff. I ask about his axe, and she says he's not ready to have it back. Instead, if he meets her in 3 days, she will return everything to him. Ned didn't like that idea, so I have to kill Ned. Is what I would say, but I literally can't do anything. He keeps knocking me down because apparently if you are fighting hand to hand, you drain stamina, and when the stamina is gone, you get knocked down. And what's that action that drains your stamina? Oh right, running! The fact that sprinting drains stamina isn't so bad itself, because I mean sure, I get winded just thinking about going on a run in real life, but the fact that your walk speed is like dead snail dragging itself through a salt mine, and then the audacity that your sprint speed is like snail going into cardiac arrest in a salt mine on top of the dead snail, is just insulting. Thankfully I had a restore fatigue potion, otherwise I literally would have just had to sit here while he beat me to death slowly. Though that being said, since he drains my stamina and I myself drain my stamina by swinging, I actually had to use 2 potions. Seriously, the stamina situation in this game is horrible. Anyway, I talked to Sosia and she thanks me as Ned probably would have killed her if I hadn't been here, which, yes, that is what he planned to do. She then gives me some potions and I'm on my way. What was I doing again? Oh yes, the 4 targets in the Ebony Mines. As Fire Eyes said, one of the 4 were stationed outside as a lookout. They had a bow, which was annoying as it kept staggering me while I tried to approach, but as soon as their back was against the wall, it was all over for them. Inside was a bit of a different story. All 3 of the remaining targets attacked me at once, but it's nothing bursting down one of them with fire bite and standing outside having a cigarette for 12 hours doesn't fix. The last one actually managed to heal, but at that point it was far too late. Mission accomplished. Before returning, I spent some time in the local shops, mostly to repair my equipment, but also to find the Black Glove book I'd been hunting, but it seems no one is carrying a copy of it no matter where I look. Anyway, I talked to Fire Eye, who promotes me to Journeyman, then says I need to get a codebook back from someone. Then she says something ominous. She drops that line, if I say jump, you ask how high, and that just oozes bad vibes to me. Regardless, I do as she instructs, getting the codebook back from Saltilde after I line her pockets, of course. I wonder if this is a Caesar cipher. Well, I'm too lazy to check. Can someone in the comments please tell me what this says? Strangely, I have the option to keep the codebook, making me think this quest might run in tandem with another, perhaps one in the Thieves Guild, but as I am about as sneaky as a beach blue whale, I'm not going to find out anytime soon, so I just hand it over. The next contract was to collect someone's debt, but I decided instead of acting like a thug, I would return to Caius and see if he has more important things for me to do. He does, and it's to find an Ashlander informant. Fortunately, he already knows of one, Hasur Zanzubani, who left the tribe to be a tradesman. I am to find him, learn what he likes, butter him up, and have him tell me what he can about the Ashlanders and the Nerevarine cult. Caius says Hasur can be found in Alderaan, but the way is dangerous, so it might be best to just use a Silt Strider. I decided to do something between the two. Though I could warp straight there using the Mages Guild, I instead went to Caldera and walked. I did this partially so I could see more of the game, because it's strangely calming walking through these foreign, almost alien-like biomes, but also because if I had to fight anything along the way, that would be some extra experience and I could sure use that. It's a good thing I did this too, because on my way I ran into Rasha. Now at first I thought it was a bit sketchy, something about the way he spoke made me kinda standoffish. He said he had a shipment of fine clothing that needed to go to Alderaan, but he has business taking him elsewhere. To be honest, I thought he was like asking me to smuggle something without me knowing, but I figured since I was already headed there, I could see what happens. However, the way I agreed to it is by saying, I swear to Zinthar I will deliver your shipment, which is a very strange way to go about an agreement. I mean, he requested that I do that to seal the deal, but it's a bit odd, isn't it? A simple, I will do this, should suffice. Anyway, he ends the conversation by saying an oath to Zinthar should never be taken lightly. This game has hit me over the head with obvious clues several times, so I heed his warning and make sure the clothes are delivered. After a bit of traveling, I find myself in the city of Alderaan. I noticed a bookseller, so I wanted to check if they had the black glove, but get this, he said, "I'll do no business with one who bears the mark of Zinthar. It's obvious you've sworn an oath to Zinthar you're yet to fulfill." You mean delivering these shirts? Like, if I do that, you'll sell me the books? Okay, well, I find Bhaval and hand the clothes over and head back, and yeah, now he'll sell me the books. Neat. Glad I ran into that Argonian after all. He didn't have a copy of the Black Glove, shocker I know, but he did have ABCs for Barbarians, and I had to buy it. A is for Atronach, B is for Bungler's Bane, C is for Comberry, and that's it. I love it, this is the best book I've ever read. I also asked the bookkeep about what Hasor might like, and it turns out he actually likes books, he likes poetry. Well, that sure is convenient, so I buy all the recommended readings and prepare to take them to my new ex-Ashlander friend. While I was looking for him though, I stumbled across something very important. The Morag Tong Guildhall. Of course, I rushed inside and asked how to join and was told to seek out Grandmaster Inno, who is in Vivec. No extra information, but Vivec, got it. Before departing the city to join the Band of Merry Murderers, I do find Hasor and ask him to tell me everything about the Ashlanders. However, I jumped the gun and didn't give him anything, so he's like, "That'll take too long, leave me alone." So I give him a book, one of the ones that I bought, and now we're best buds, so he tells me everything I want to know. He tells me there are many customs. For example, if I barge into someone's yurt without invitation, they could challenge me. If I leave, I might be forgiven, but I should be extra careful about tribal chiefs and wise women. Always be courteous and leave if requested. In regards to the Nerevarine prophecies, he names one specific tribe, the Urshalaku, and tells me a little about them. I tell him about my dreams, hoping to learn more about the golden masked figure, but he cannot help me. Finally, I ask about the Ashlanders in general, and he gives me the information Caius was seeking. I take a silt strider back to Balmora, then rest up. Another dream, but this time, I was called, not by name, but instead by Lord Nerevar Indoril. Dagoth bids me come and climb Red Mountain. Beneath it, break your bonds, shed cursed skin, and purge the Inwa from Morrowind. I wanted to immediately rush back and tell Hasor about my dream, but there was no silt strider guy. He's just taking a break, I guess? That's fine, I suppose. The Mage Lady can just teleport me there. He says it's a most peculiar dream, and it would seem that Dagoth himself invites me to visit him at Red Mountain, and he reiterates the importance that I was called Lord Nerevar. Now, I'm sure that's cool and everything, but I was more interested in joining the Morag Tong, so instead of reporting back to Caius, I went straight to Vivec in an attempt to find the Grand Master. I wasn't exactly sure where to start, so I just kinda asked people about joining, and eventually one of them offhandedly says that they heard rumors that the base is somewhere under the arena. I was getting closer to the truth. So naturally, when I heard under the arena, I thought it meant in those waterworks underneath it. I found a dreamer down here, which was surprising, I guess, but not much else except a couple of slaughterfish. But what I didn't realize, and happened upon by chance, is that the two sections of the canal works are actually different, and one side has a storage room. Inside are a couple of trapped and or locked doors. I accidentally broke a lockpick trying to get through the lower level door and searched all the barrels hoping to find another one, but to no avail. Just as I was about to leave though, I checked my local map and could see another exit on the other side of a trapped door. This must be it, I thought, but how am I ever going to get through a level 25 locked door, never mind the trap? I didn't really want to go and level up security, but then I remembered I had picked up a scroll that unlocks 40 to 60 points on touch. I could use that! The trap still fired, but that's okay. The hatch itself was also locked, this time level 50, so even if I had trained security up, it wouldn't have been enough. But the scroll worked again and I was in. Was this it? Did I make it to the Morag Tong? Yes. Yes, I had. Finally, I had arrived. I spoke with Grandmaster Inno, who tells me to fully join I must pass a test. The test involves murder, which I have been mostly pretty good at, assuming it's a 1v1. My target is Fararin Oron, who can be found here in Vivec in the Halalu Plaza. Before leaving, I notice the black glove is sitting on the Grandmaster's desk. The end of it says, "Seek the Grandmaster, who by tradition lives in the unseen and unlooked-for corners of Vivec City, between the blood of battle and the waters of life." I don't know if I would have gotten that. I mean, it says Vivec City, so I guess I would have come here and asked around. The arena is clearly the blood of battle, and I guess the waterworks is the waters of life? Not sure. Anyway, time to murder. Hello, my name is Level 0. You've done something wrong. Prepare to die. Alright, well that didn't go as expected. Vvardenfell has a spell that... I'm not sure what it is, but it is instant death if it connects. Well, maybe not instant, death over 1 second. I suppose in theory that means if I chugged potions or used hearth heal I could survive it, but even if I did that, I'm sure he would cast it again. He also has a burden spell or something that otherwise causes me not to be able to move. So on several attempts at this, I just started dumping things to lower my weight. That way if I did get hit, I would still be able to run around. All I had to do was chain stagger him and or avoid his fireball of death. This was made much more frustrating because half the time when I died, one of the nearby NPCs would taunt me by calling me stupid. Thanks ladies, I'm trying my best here. Eventually I managed to outmaneuver his fireballs and he pulled a sword. Probably still dangerous, but as long as I strike first, I would win out. When I exited the bar, I was approached by an ordinator and told I had a bounty of 1,040 gold. Unfortunately, I didn't have that, so I could either resist arrest, go to jail, or show the writ of execution, which I did, and... well, the bounty's gone. I wonder how these things work. I mean, surely it isn't just someone pays a large amount of septims to put a hit on someone else, right? That would be kinda terrifying. The targets must have done something worth losing their life over, surely. Right, guys? Maybe it's best not to think about it. I return to Grandmaster Inno and he welcomes me into the ranks of the Morag Tong. Now, he has 2 more targets for me. Taurus Saren and Odaisha Yasamibal. Taurus is in the Redoran Canton in Vivec, while Odaisha is a bit further away, needing a boat to tell a rune and then a bit of a swim across some water. I figured since Taurus is nearby, I would handle him first. Inside the Saren Manor, I find a latch to a basement of sorts, and within is Taurus. Unfortunately, he immediately recognizes me as Morag Tong and goes on the offensive. He's equipped with a dagger that has some kind of health-sapping ability. Honestly, I'm super surprised that the early game quests for the Morag Tong have such difficult to kill enemies. The only way I was able to win is by leaving the area, as in Morrowind, enemies don't follow you through loading zones, heal up, and then just outlast his enchantment with potions until his dagger no longer has any bite to it. Of course, I immediately take it off of his body. I mean, it's not like he's using it anymore. What's strange to me is that despite taking him out within earshot of another citizen, my crimes were not reported. I don't know why. I wonder if there's some hidden fame/infamy check for NPCs and they deemed him as like, disposable for lack of a better word. Not that it really matters, I have the writ to let myself off the hook, but it's a neat little world building thing that I like. In this case, my journal specifically says, no one dared report my actions. Maybe it's flavor text or they really were scared of me. Next up is Odaisha, so I take a nearby boat to Tel Bronor where I get my first taste of cliff racer combat. I was led to believe that these things are super dangerous, but they really don't do much of anything. Sure, I mean they're hard to hit, but they hardly hurt me back, so it doesn't really matter. When I return to the boat, they are willing to take me to Sagereth Mora, which I recall is the starting location of the directions, so I do just that. Then I take a boat to Tel Mora, and it was here that I came to the realization that the taxi services can get you pretty much anywhere, but not from anywhere. You might have to daisy chain them together, which is fine, I guess. It makes a little bit of sense in the world, I suppose. After all, boats are supposed to hold more than one passenger, so you wouldn't sail it across the whole world for one guy, instead letting that person jump between hubs. It really isn't like a problem, I just found it interesting because from a purely programming standpoint, it would be easier to just have a list of all possible destinations. Then the only check would be to either remove the one you're currently at, or have text pop up saying that's where you are. Prices would need to be calculated, but that's already a thing in the current setup, so that's a moot point. Anyway, in Tel Mora, I begin making my way across the sea as instructed, eventually ending up at Odaisha's yurt. He immediately attacks me upon entering his house, which in this barren fight or die world is a completely reasonable response, honestly. At any rate, I quickly dispatch him. After swimming and taking a couple boats, I end up back in Vivec, where Grandmaster Inno congratulates me and pays me 500 gold each, which I thought made me loaded, and to think, Moss said not to drop out of Meiju. I am promoted to the rank of Blind Thrall and given 3 more writs, one for Saren Sidis, one for Ethel Seloth, and one for Idroso Vindu. Saren is near my previous target, whereas the other 2 are here in Vivec in the Telvanni Plaza. To be honest, it kinda got under my skin that Saren was marked as near Odaisha. Like, I just went all the way out there. Don't misunderstand, I do love the world of Vvardenfell, but it took me like 20 minutes in real time to get out there and get back. Sure, it's not like that long, but now I'm being asked to do it again? Really? I plan on doing more of the Morag Tong quests just for fun, but because of this running around, I figured after these 3 targets I would put that on hold, maybe spin back around to it later. First, since 2 of them are here in Vivec, might as well get them out of the way. They can be found in the temporary housing in the Telvanni Plaza. They're in the same room as well as some other unimportant individuals, and once you attack one, they both get into combat. Fortunately, neither of them are particularly strong, and the onlookers don't care. Ethel did summon a skeleton, but then she got trapped trying to run away from me to cast spells, so I just, delicately disemboweled her with my sword. Once that's done, I set out for Saren, taking the boats and swimming across the seas, eventually coming across the Arab and Imsun camp. It's really isolated, so I hope no quests require me to come back out here. Oh, that's so cool. Your character puts their hand in front of their face if they're running into a sandstorm. That's actually an incredible piece of detail. I see why people love these games. After some exploration, I find Zain Tirari, the location of my target. Inside, I was rushed by some Dunmer, and at first we were evenly matched, but his luck pulled ahead and I fell. Second time around, I used some frost magic I had purchased, as Dunmer have innate fire resistance, so Firebite wasn't going to be as useful. This secured my victory. I had to fight a couple more enemies, but my favorite was a mage who wasted what was probably pretty powerful spells, casting them at the stairs. Dryer Valindis was up next, and he was so powerful, he was able to kill me through a door. So resting until healed, or maybe at all, I'm not sure, will rest the enemy's health to full. As such, when I ran into an enemy that could out DPS me, I would frequently just dip into another loading zone, heal up using a spell, and go back. Cheese? Maybe, but hey, it just works. Ironically, Saren was the weakest enemy in this whole cave. I'm not sure if he bugged out or what, but he kinda just stood there while I pelted him with spells and then finished him off. Hey, I'm not complaining. What I will complain about, however, is the walk back to Vivek. Seriously, when was fast travel invented? In the 3rd era? I ran into one of these things, Kagoti, and my favorite thing about them is that they have the Duke Nukem 3D Pig Cop alert sound for when they get hit. I love that. I'm sure the sound effect came from something else, but that's what I associate it with. After much walking, I make it back to the Morag Tong headquarters, where Grandmaster Inno rewards me with a whopping 1,500 gold total and 2 more writs. The first for Goril Retharan and the second for Galassa Uvain, both here in Vivek. I was also advanced to the rank of Thrall for all my hard work of making pincushions out of random citizens. I know I said I was going to stop a second ago, but I mean, we're already in Vivek, so why not? Goril puts up very little of a fight and graciously gives me a Fiend Tonto and something called a Glove of Sanguine Horny Fist? Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Oh well, I don't really want either of them, but they are worth a pretty septum, so they're mine now. Galassa absolutely pummels me to death on my first attempt because I wasn't paying attention and didn't realize I didn't have the magicka to cast my spell. Now, a real intelligent person would have restored their magicka and tried again. I'm not. I just tried to position myself in a way where I wouldn't get pincered between the two and die. I still failed the not dying part. Also, this is when I learned that waiting is not the same as resting. See, I first thought this saying it's illegal meant if I tried to wait, I would incur a fine, like loitering or something. But it just doesn't allow you to rest, as in the old school rest, you know, like to regain spell slots, that kind of rest. The option is disabled from the UI. Waiting has the benefit of restoring your fatigue, but resting is how you would restore your health and magicka, the latter being pretty important in this case. This time I tried with an enchanted blade, and it did better, until her friend jumped in, and despite getting a heal off, I got staggered into oblivion and had to retreat into the nearby Halalu records room. So what did I do? Well, chug a potion, jump through the door, hit her once or twice, and then jump back before I got overwhelmed. It took up a fair few of my potions, but it worked. Thankfully there was another door out of this room, so I didn't need to get by her lackey. I returned to Inno, who awarded me with 1,000 gold for each writ this time and the promotion to White Thrall. I also asked about special dues, which prompted a conversation about the Dark Brotherhood. Still embarrassed by my defeat, I was excited at a chance to get back at them. It would seem one Myun Gi, a Dagon cultist, has a contact in the Dark Brotherhood. I am to obtain the name of this contact and report back. On my way out, the 2 merchants that previously gatekept their wares are now willing to trade with me. I didn't buy anything, but I'm glad to know it only took like 5 murders and some change to get them to open up. Also, why isn't there like a back entrance to this hideout? I mean, there could easily be a sewer access drain to the outside that is locked and without a key you can't use, and of course the key is obtained just by joining, but no, every time I want to come here I have to go to the arena, then run all the way to the bottom and into the hideout. Why? Anyway, over in the Foreign Quarter I find Myun Gi, and at first he claims he knows nothing about the Dark Brotherhood, but 200 gold proves he in fact does know something about them. He tells me the contact is a Khajiit named Zura Azami, and she's found in the plaza of the Foreign Quarter. At first, I wanted to go meet her myself, but then I thought better than to disobey a direct order from my Grand Master, so instead I returned to Inno and passed the information along. He praises me and said he would send agents to question Surazami. My journal updates, but that seemed like the end? I was a bit let down, so I decided to go look for her myself, but she was nowhere to be found. I searched everywhere up here, but I just couldn't seem to find her. Granted, there were a couple of locked doors I didn't open, but I assume she's not stuffed in a closet of a random merchant. None of the individuals up here could help either. Honestly, this was kind of a letdown. I'm not really sure what I was expecting, but nothing wasn't the answer. At any rate, I figured it was time to get back on the main path, so I took a Silt Strider to Belmora and spoke with Caius. He promoted me and told me to head off for the Urshalaku camp to speak with Sul-Matul and Ibani Maesa. Oh, also that the Emperor and his advisors think that I am the hero of prophecy and destined to save the world. I'm sorry, do you want to run that by me again? More specifically, the Emperor said that I have the appearance of the prophesized hero. Caius says the two individuals I'm to speak to are the head of the Nerevarine cult. I'm to tell them my story and ask to be tested against the Nerevarine prophecies. He then gives me 200 septums and tells me to grab some supplies from the fort nearby before heading out. That was less of a suggestion and more of a he made plans for me to pick up supplies, so I should go do that. Finally, he says I should head to Margon and find a scout named Nulino who will tell me how to reach Urshulaku. I get a bunch of scrolls from Curlius and a handful of potions from Somatus. With that, the plan was to Siltstrider hop to Margon, but there was one singular problem. The Siltstrider driver wasn't getting paid enough and quit his job. He was nowhere to be found. Look, I know these old games can be jank, so I thought maybe he fell off the platform and was on the ground, but no, he was just gone. Well, I guess I do enjoy a nice walk through this world. I saw more giant floating squid monsters, and this time I decided to approach it. It did not attack me, which I guess is probably a good thing. I don't know, they could be harmless like a giant floating pillow, or they could be one of the most deadly things in the game that chose not to attack me because they view me as smaller than an ant. I'm not going to find out. On my way, I found Pimini again and noticed that her shoes were a bit shiny. And it occurred to me that she's wearing the boots she said she would give me. Now, I could go out of my way to complete her quest, but the roads are very dangerous this time of year. Fortify speed 200 points, holy crap, that's amazing, but blind 100%? What does that do? Oh, I can't see. I don't know why I didn't expect that to happen, but now I understand why they are called the boots of blinding speed. The movement speed is actually phenomenal. I can sort of keep track of myself using the minimap and just look, I'm zooming. That being said, a black screen with a HUD probably doesn't make for something very engaging to watch, so I'll keep their use to kind of a minimum. After much walking, I found this man, Fonus Rathion. He asked me to take him to Coal Cave, saying he can pay me 150 septums if I do. I didn't have the option to ask about Coal Cave and its location, but money is money, so I accepted. He tells me it's south of Nissus, which is unfortunate because it's not where I'm going, but that's fine, so together we set off. First, we scale a mountain. Why do I bring that up? Because somewhere along the way, he got lost on that mountain. I had hoped if I went all the way to Coal Cave and waited or entered and left the location, he would respawn and the quest would update. That didn't happen, so I guess poor Fonus will never make it there. Should have asked for payment up front. Always get payment up front. On the upside, there is a Siltstrider taxi nearby that can take me right to Margon, so this detour wasn't totally worthless. Before finding the scout, or rather while bumbling around looking for the scout, I happened across a magic rock. No, really, it's the magic rock of Margon, and apparently this rock was going to be used by Mehrunes Dagon to crush the Dwemer, but Vivek taunted him so he threw it at him instead. Okay. Also, there's a Dremora here, just kind of chilling. I taunted him, but nothing happened. Eventually, I wised up and asked someone about specific places, and they actually told me the outpost I was looking for is on the southwest side of town, ultimately leading me to the scout, Nulino. When questioned about the Urshulaku camp, they tell me that it's really far north, because of course it is. They gave me directions and also a warning to stay away from the ruins of... oh, who comes up with these names? The Asuranabatashi Shrine, because powerful Daedra are there. In any other Elder Scrolls game, I would scoff and think, hey, no, that's free loot. But I've since learned my place. The world of Morrowind is harsh and unforgiving. I shan't tempt fate. This shipwreck is one of those landmarks mentioned, and I thought it would have some good loot. It did not. Okay, I was just too curious about those ruins. Couldn't call myself an adventurer if I didn't just take a peek, right? Well, the very first clan fear nearly ripped me a new one, so that's enough for me. I continued east until I arrived at the camp. I remembered what Hasor told me. I need to be curious and respectful, and never just walk into a yurt uninvited because I could be challenged, which I assume would make it much more difficult to communicate with them. Also, wise women are to be respected at all times. I speak with one of the tribesmen, and they ask if Sul Matul, the chief, or Nibani, the wise woman, has sent for me. I answer honestly, no, and am told that if they have not sent for me, I cannot speak with them. Okay, what if you forgot that I said no and I said yes instead? I have not heard of this, so go and find some other who has. Okay, not exactly helpful. Perhaps against better judgment, I barge into the wise woman's yurt and try to talk to her. She tells me to leave. I ask about a gift, remembering that Ashlanders have a custom of gift giving, and she straight up tells me that she likes gold. At least she's not proud of it. So of course I bribe her until she really likes me and asks about the Nerevarine prophecies. She questions why I would ask such a thing. I tell her I'm curious, and she's like, makes sense, go read a book or something, not my job. So this time around I tell her that I fulfill the image of the prophecies, and she's like, yeah, sure you do, bud. Jokes aside, she thinks it's crazy, but that I don't look like a fool or a madman, so I should go speak with Zabamund, and if he gives me permission, I can speak with Sul Matul. Zabamun says that the chief won't speak with me, nor will the wise woman, which makes me think I might have made a mistake with going straight to her, but it's probably fine. After bribing him, he says I speak well and with respect, and it is against their customs for an outlander to speak with the chief or wise woman, and Oops. When I asked about the prophecies, he asked why he or anyone should trust me, and I had a few options. I could fight him to the death, boast about my accomplishments, tell him I know much about the 6th house and the Nerevarine, and humbly ask to speak to the chief, or bribe him. I of course chose to ask humbly, and he still shot me down. Gold worked, and I now have permission to speak with the Ashcan. Sulamatul says that no outlander may join the Nerevarine cult, but if I were a clan friend, then perhaps I could. He then goes on to say that he has an initiation rite, and if I pass it, he will permit me to talk to Nibani, as if we aren't already besties shopping on Ebonheart Hills. Anyway, the trial is to retrieve a bow from Sulmatul's father from the Urshalaku burial caverns. Do this, and I'm a clan friend. The caverns themselves are south-southeast of the camp. I am to walk along the water until I find a rock cairn, look up what a rock cairn is on Google, then turn and head south until I find the entrance. But I was warned, the spirits of the ancestors guard the caverns ferociously and will attack on sight. At first it wasn't so bad, a rat, a couple skeletons, I thought this was going to be relatively easy. Then I walked into the second room and there was a skeleton archer. It didn't kill me, but each arrow did a sizable amount of damage and it kept backing up. The second archer killed me. And then the next attempt went even worse, the first archer took me out. Third attempt, the gods took pity on me and replaced the archer with a club-wielding one. I like that I have no plans to use a bow, but I still take the enchanted arrows like I will. In the other games I would have made an exception, right? Like sure, I'm a heavily melee focused, but I can at least use arrows while the enemy sprints at me, but here in Morrowind it just feels pointless to do that unless you actually have leveled up marksmen. I found a dead adventurer who was kind enough to hold a few books for me so I can continue looting things, including his body. A super cool thing about this cave is that there are a lot of enchanted weapons around. In fact, now that I think about it, a lot of the weapons I find are enchanted, like way more than I expected considering enchanted gear is pretty rare in Oblivion and Skyrim. Again, that's later in the series, so it's not really a fair comparison, I'm just noting it. This cave system also has several branching paths, like the inner room that has this massive spiral leading to the top with multiple doors out. I wasn't sure where to go, but I honestly didn't want to fight more things that I could handle and didn't want to find more loot that I couldn't carry. So I just went to the very top, hoping that that was where the bow was. I find a ghost, which isn't immune to fire. It does give me a disease, but thankfully one of those earlier potions I got as supplies was a cure disease potion. Also, this ghost is actually the Wraith of Sol Sinapul, who is Sulmatul's father. On him is the bow. On my way out, it occurred to me that it is rather dark in here, so I wanted to use a light scroll, and I forgot how to actually use them. Instead of selecting it from the menu, I need to use the second magic menu to select and cast it. At this point, I was just over 12 hours into my run, and I'm only just now really understanding this magic menu. Much better. I can't wait to have to artificially bring up the brightness in post for every single time it's dark or I'm in a cave. Regardless, I return with the bow and am named Clan Friend. Also, I'm allowed to keep the bow, and I do out of kindness, but it's kinda worthless to me. Anyway, I speak with Nibani again and ask her all about the prophecies. She tells me about the aspect and uncertain parents, the moon and star, and at the end of both, she blatantly says, I am not the Nerevarine. However, when asked about sleepers, she tells me that it is in fact a sign that the Nerevarine will come, not that I necessarily am the Nerevarine, but that I may play some part in it. I was feeling pretty disappointed that I might in fact not be the hero, but then she said, many fall, but one remains. The same line I heard in my dreams while on the boat here all those moons ago. Coincidence? Possibly, but I had to be sure. So I directly asked her, do I pass the test? No, I am not the Nerevarine. But I am someone who can become the Nerevarine. If I wish to be the Nerevarine, I must seek the lost prophecies among the dissident priests of the temple, find them and bring them to Nibani, and she will be my guide. She's told me all that she knows, so now I must return to Caius with what I have learned. On my travels back, I found a place called Shishi, and within a powerful warrior attacked me. I was stubborn and wanted to win this fight. This was quite difficult, but through clever use of doors and potions, I was victorious. I couldn't wait to see what treasures this secret place held. More angry enemies, that's all it was. Yeah, no, I'm stubborn, but not stupid. I know when I'm not wanted. Eventually, I make it all the way back to Belmora and tell Caius what I have learned. He will contact Maramilo about the lost prophecies, and that in the meantime, he has a tough assignment for me. Hopefully not to go back to that shack I just ran away from. Apparently, there was a patrol near Narmak hunting smugglers with 6th house connections. But they found a base, a shrine, and a 6th house priest. I'm to find the base, kill the priest, and give him a full report. He gave me 400 septums and told me to seek out Champion Rasa in Fort Buckmoth for more information. That's near Alderaan, and I'll be honest, I didn't want to walk, so one of the 3 things I looked up in this run was whether the Siltstrider taxi guy can wander off. I was right in my assumption that sometimes the static NPCs can glitch out or disappear. There was a strong likelihood he just clipped into the stairs. And I mean, I could have tested that with a detect life spell, but instead I learned the arcane arts of Console Command RA, which I believe stands for Reset Actors. I was afraid this would cause unintended consequences, but to be honest, I wouldn't know, so if that does happen, I would just likely call it Bethesda jank. One cerebral manip later, I am at Fort Buckmoth speaking with Rasa. She tells me of the whole patrol, only 1 troop returned alive, but horribly disfigured with corpus disease. He kept saying the name of a cavern off the coast, Illinibi. The patrol fought with disfigured man-beasts, corpus monsters she thinks, as well as a half-man creature named Dagoth Gairs, likely the 6th house priest. The cave itself isn't on any maps, and I need to ask the locals about it. Apparently, Dagoth Gairs was powerful enough to smite the whole patrol, but leave one alive to pass on a message. The sleeper awakes. Dagoth is Lord, and I am his priest. The 6th house has risen. All will be one with him in the flesh. This quest might be more dangerous than the average dungeon crawl. As I was making my way out there, I ran into Hissin Deepraid, who told me he was swindled by a witch. She placed a curse, or rather a disease, on him causing paralysis. I can either find a cure for him, use a spell, or tell him to just wait until it wears off. Unfortunately, I didn't have a potion or spell for it, but leaving him out here in the wilderness unable to defend himself against any band of roaming evildoers would weigh on my moral compass. So I killed him myself. Except in doing so, I contracted Witchwither and was unable to move. Karma, you silly goose. I continued heading west until I got to the coast, at which point I turned south. Thankfully, I remember I had water walking, so this was slightly faster than swimming. Funnily enough, I actually found the cave entrance before asking about it, but I was worried it would cause something to not function correctly, because Bethesda, so I still went into town to ask about it. After doing that, I was ready to brave the depths. The first part of the cave has these ash slaves who cast devastating shock magic. A reminder that I really needed to get some form of ranged magic. Firebite is pretty strong, but like melee, it still requires me to close the distance, putting me at a clear disadvantage to any ranged opponent. The next area had some other enemies, a scamp, a bone walker, a corpus stalker, nothing too bad. The dreamers in here are also pretty weak. They are naked with a low damage club. I'm not sure why, but this ash slave couldn't hit me with his magic. My guess is he targets my stomach area, maybe, and it's hitting the water before it hits me. I don't know, I'll take it. But in the deepest part of the cave, while I was fending off a dreamer, the voice of Dagoth Gairs rang out. He says that the 6th house greets me, Lord Nerevar, and he wishes that I would come to honor Dagoth friendship, not betray it. I asked about this friendship, and he said from Dagoth himself, once we were friends and brothers, Lord Nerevar, in peace and in war. Yet beneath Red Mountains you struck me down as I guarded the treasure you bound me by oath to defend, but remembering our old friendship, I would forgive you and raise you high in my service. Garrus says Dagoth invites me to Red Mountain, and if I pledge my friendship anew, I could have counsel and power. Wicked lies, a tongue of silver, I thought. Dagoth is simply afraid of me and wishes for me to let my guard down. I will not be tempted, foul beast, so I drew up my sword and cast the devil priest into the fires, but upon his dying breath, he cursed me with the corpus disease. Inside the evil ritual chamber, I find some bells. I attempt to play the Futurama theme song, but am unable to because skill issue, I guess. Or no, the corpus disease rots my hearing. I play Master of Puppets instead. Seems more appropriate anyway. With the priest dead, I can journey out of the cave and return to Caius hoping he knows of a cure. And I sure hope he does, because every NPC I talk to tells me to get away from them. Luckily, taxis still work so I can hop a few boats and bugs to get back to Balmora. Caius told me he feared I would contract the disease, so he spoke with all of his informants searching for a cure. Why he didn't tell me to pack a couple, resist disease potions though, I don't know. He said my best bet is to seek out Devaith Fair, a Telvanni wizard who treats many of the victims. He gives me a gift, gold for expenses, and a couple of levitation potions because apparently being able to fly is mandatory to traverse the Telvanni towers, because wizards don't use stairs. After I seek him out, I must hurry back so we can collect the lost prophecies for Nibani. Telfair itself is southwest of Sedath Mora, but there's no boat service so I must water walk or swim to get there. So I do just that. I water walk without being able to see across the water, then when I arrive at Telfair, I enter and use the roomless elevator to get to the second hall study where I speak with Devaith. He asked if I had the divine disease, or if I wanted to plunder the dungeon, or leer at his daughters? Obviously I asked about the daughters first. Terminal diseases can wait. Turns out they are less daughters and more, I don't know what they are. He says he made them from his own flesh, a side benefit of studying the corpus disease. So I changed the topic. He laughs at the idea the Nerevarine might be in his care, a fat, disgusting corpus monster mad as a marsh rat. I tell him no, it looks like I am the Nerevarine. He doesn't fully believe me at first, which is understandable really, but he has a potion. Not just any potion, no, it's a potion that could cure corpus, but instead of doing that, it's killed everyone who's drank it. I don't know if that's what you would call a potion, sir. But like he says, I've got nothing to lose, so if I go get a pair of boots from someone in the Corpusarium called Vvardenfell, he will give me the potion. The Corpusarium is the name for the wing of the tower with all of the infected. Apparently, Divath lets adventurers try to plunder some rewards down there. I assume because they're either successful or he has more test subjects. So what I expected down here was a lot of corpus monsters trying to eat my face. What I found though was something I never expected. This is Vvardenfell, and I'll be honest, when I first saw him, I thought he was one of those assault commanders from Duke 3D, but after learning the truth, that's an insult and I feel bad. When spoken to, he asked me if I'm here for the Dwemer boots, and I am, but he also says something that piqued my interest. Only idiots could have crafted these boots. It shames my race that we must be judged by the works of such lackwit blunderers. When questioned what he means by his race, he tells a brief story that he is a master crafter in the service of Lord Kagrenac. He still retains his cunning, but his hands and his eyes fail him. Each day he mocks the gods who destroyed his race and condemns them in this bleak existence. When asked what he means by that, he says, "Since the disappearance of the dwarves, I have been alone in this world, trapped in this grim prison. I can scarcely move and my fellow inmates are scarcely good company. The risk of corpus disease deters most visitors, but if you meet with cultivated minds undaunted by the terrors of the Corpusarium, you might mention your recent interview with the last living dwarf." And this, I don't know how to explain how it made me feel. I'm not a huge lore guy for these games because, I'm not sure, my brain is about as textured as a marble and the size of one to boot. But having played Oblivion, having played Skyrim, hearing about the Lost Dwemer race and such, to suddenly be standing and talking to one claiming to be the last of that race, it gave me like historic vibes, like I was witnessing history. Which I know is kinda silly, it's a video game, but I still felt so engrossed in the moment. A similar thing happened when meeting Knight Paladin Gelibor in Skyrim for the first time. Anyway, after speaking with Yagrum, I take the boots back to Vvardenfell and he gives me the potion. And it's a bit intimate how he administers the potion, but after I finished it, he says that there's no sign of the disease. But I still have it. Just like he planned. What? You planned to rid me of the symptoms, but I'm still carrying the disease? Before I could get fully upset, what this actually did was remove all of the negative effects, but keep the positive ones. So now I'm immune to the actual disease, all other diseases, and I don't look like a Cronenberg monster. At any rate, I head back to Caius, who promotes me to operative and tells me I will head the blades in Vvardenfell until he returns. It would seem he's been recalled to the Imperial City. He hands over his pants, shirt, and ring, as well as some gold, and then tells me about my next mission. I must continue seeking the Nerevarine prophecies. I am to go to the Hall of Wisdom and Justice in Vivec and speak with Mara, but she's being watched. If something has gone wrong, she will use the code word Amaya. Once I have the lost prophecies, I will return to Nibani and follow her guidance. He wishes me luck, as this is likely the last I will see of him. Mira isn't in the library, and I decided not to ask anyone about her just like last time. I'm not sure if that matters, but hey. So the only other option is to break into her quarters, and on her desk is a note addressed to Amaya. It states she had to run some old documents over to the Inquisitor at the Ministry of Truth, and she will be there for a while, and she suggests that we meet up there. She explicitly asked me to bring 2 scrolls of divine intervention and says I can get them from Janand Malini in the Mages Guild. She also left some levitation potions on the table, as the Ministry of Truth is only accessible by flight. Man, why do people in this universe hate stairs? I actually already had 1 scroll of divine intervention that I found in the wild, but I went ahead and bought 2 more just in case. I fly up to the ministry and speak with a guard who Mara told I would be coming. He hands over a key and says that I need to get more keys for the doors inside and that the ordinators don't carry them. I'll have to find them in desks. Mara herself is in a prison cell on the far right. Get in and get out quickly, or at least that was the plan. I had not leveled Sneak, like at all. If I did, that was from a random skill book. The semi-good news is that Caius' shirt can fortify Sneak 20 points for 20 seconds, and the pants have a weak chameleon spell. Is that super useful? Not really. I tried to be clever and reach the desk through the partition, which did work, then I left and went in through the back way. Unfortunately, I was discovered, but I found the holding cells and just flung my way over towards them until I got to Mira. Again, NPCs not being able to go through doors really saved the day here. I give one of the scrolls to Mira, and she says after we get out, I need to get to the secret dissident priest monastery in Holamayan. To get there, I need to speak with Balada on the east docks of Ebonheart, tell her Mira sent me and that I want to go fishing. Then I need to speak with Vivrana Aeron about a secret entrance. Said entrance is hidden by a magical shield. At dawn and dusk, the portal will open. It's just up the stone pathway north of the docks. The head of the dissident priests, Gilvanis Barrero, tells me in reviewing some ancient texts, he found 2 more prophecies of the Nerevarine, one simply called the Lost Prophecy and the other the 7 Curses. He also prepared a document called Kagranak's Tools, which details the horrible secrets the temple is hiding about the true history of the tribunal and its corrupt power. Apparently, deep beneath the Red Mountain, the Dwemer discovered a powerful magic stone. It was determined that this stone is actually the heart of the god Lorkhan. Kagranak created 3 tools to tap into its limitless power: Wraithguard, Sunder, and Keening. Kagranak then used these tools, and no one knows for sure what happened, but the Dwemer race disappeared entirely from the mortal world. Lord Nerevar and Lord Dagoth retrieved the tools, but didn't know what to do with them, so Nerevar asked Dagoth to watch over them while he sought counsel with Vivek, Almalexia, and Sotha Sil. While Nerevar was gone, it seems Dagoth was tempted by this power, and when Nerevar and the counselors returned, he refused to give up the tools. They quarreled, and Dagoth was mortally wounded, driven off, and the tools recovered. Together, Nerevar and the counselors took the tools, swearing to never use them, but after Nerevar's death, the counselors too were tempted. And they eventually succumbed to that temptation. They took the tools, traveled back to Red Mountain, and gave themselves divine powers. But it would seem Dagoth was not dead. They aren't sure how or what happened, but they believe that he somehow fused with the heart in a way and was able to draw power directly from it, granting immense strength and immortality. Stealing the power of a god is a great and terrible folly. While the 3 counselors did so sparingly, they too succumbed to the dangers of such an act. This is a lot to process, a heart of a god beneath a mountain and tools to siphon such power? Nevertheless, though, Dagoth is a real and tangible threat, so I make haste back to Nibani to hopefully get some guidance. On my travels, I tried out a steel claymore. Originally, I was using one-handed weapons because I wanted a shield, but 2-handed longblades seemed to be quite powerful, something I would do well to remember. Nibani tells me she will study deep the words the priest told me and the lost prophecies. She says I must go and train and return once several moons had passed and she has learned all that there is. Instead of doing that, I immediately asked about her judgment, and she tells me there is no doubt now the incarnate shall be an outlander, and that I, blessed by Azura, might lift the 7 curses of Dagoth-Ur. She says that there are 7 steps, 7 trials I must overcome to do this. The first trial is to be born on a certain day to uncertain parents. This trial is already concluded. The second is that neither blight nor age can harm the incarnate, the curse of flesh before him flies. I explained that I contracted corpus disease and was cured, which makes me immune to all other diseases, as well as never aging, thus completing the second trial. The third trial, however, and any after it, are yet to be fulfilled. I am to go to Sol Matul and learn of it. Sol Matul finds it hard to believe that I am the Nerevarine and sets forth a warrior's test before he will reveal the third trial. The test is to go to Kogorun, the ancient halls of the Forgotten House Dagoth, and retrieve 3 tokens. The first is Corpus Weeping, something to confirm that I am in fact immune to the disease. The second is a cup with the mark of House Dagoth. Sol Matul has seen these cups, so he will know it is true. And the last is Shadow Shield, an enchanted shield that lies in the tomb of Dagoth Morin, deep in the lava field tunnels beneath Kogorun. When I finally arrive at the ancient house of Dagoth, I enter a side chamber where I am immediately attacked by a powerful beast. Something that does an enormous amount of damage to me. I knew this would be difficult, but I had no idea what disastrous events were about to take place. On my second shot at it, I decided to levitate to the roof and just work my way down. I wasn't completely sure what I was looking for as far as the cup goes, but I would guess any Corpus monster could drop the weepings, and the shield itself is somewhere below, so as long as I kept heading downwards, I would eventually find it. I found a locked door that, when opened, revealed a dead adventurer with a glass shield and a glass cuirass. It only just now occurred to me that I've been wearing the same Dark Brotherhood armor this whole time. This is where I encountered my first Flame Atronach, powerful at range, but less so in close combat, but amazingly, they are immune to normal weapons. Thankfully, I've been carrying a silver longsword for just an occasion. In the waterway beneath Kogorun, I found a Frost Atronach, which promptly killed me in 1 spell blast. That is very disheartening. Second time around, I avoided him and found a Corpus Stalker who dropped the weepings. Okay, that's 1 token down. Here though, I did learn a crucial ability, what I like to call the Dance of Magical Death. See, spellcasters will attempt to hit you with, well, spells, but if you wait for them to cast, you can just move to the side. Enemies also do not regenerate magicka, so once they run out, they have no choice but to attempt melee combat, making most of them significantly weaker. Not all of them though, as touch magic is still a thing. Why do I say that? Well, because I was about to meet the worst spellcaster in the entire game. Allow me to introduce you to the Greater Bone Walker. Looks like a zombie, a strong one to be sure, but nothing more, right? Well, you couldn't be more wrong. It hit me with a spell that caused me to become over-encumbered. A burden, to be sure, but something that would wear off. I have plenty of health, and it doesn't seem to be doing much at all aside from casting that burden spell. Once I had slain it, I realized the true horror of this absolute monster. It wasn't casting a burden spell. Oh no. It was casting Dread Curse Strength, a damage attribute spell. This pile of coagulated flesh tanked my strength all the way down to 0. Not only ruining my ability to attack, but also my carrying capacity. 0. This thing permanently rooted me in place with weak noodly arms. Well, okay, not permanent. There are a couple of ways around this curse. This is the second of 3 things I looked up. Specifically, what I wanted to check was what this spell actually was. If it was something that would wear off after a couple of minutes, I would just stand and wait. If not, then I would need to figure out what to do. Unfortunately, in doing so, I learned some, what I'll jokingly call, forbidden knowledge. If I was smart, I would have simply searched for the Bonewalker on a wiki and read what it did, informing me of exactly what I needed to know, but no more. But instead, I googled something like, fought Bonewalker, can't move, why? And the first return was a Reddit thread. One of the top comments read something like, this is why I always carry Restore Strength potions, or the spell, that, and Bark and Recall. Forbidden Knowledge 1 was the fact that there is a Restore Strength spell. To be fair, I could have probably guessed that because Oblivion had it, but as this is the previous entry in the series, I wasn't sure. Forbidden Knowledge 2 is that something called Mark and Recall are so important to this random player that they always have them. I actually had a Scroll of Recall, but hadn't used it because I didn't know what it did, but the text is something like Recall on Self, and then it clicked. Recall, to be sent back to. It's likely Mark and Recall are 2 halves of the same teleportation coin. Or that was my theory anyway. If true, it's a game changer. Regardless, I had learned what I set out to and needed to figure out what to do about this bony a-hole. Option 1 was to leave the dungeon and return more supply, but I hated that idea because I was already here and it's so far out of the way. Option 2 is to just not fight it. So I loaded a save and put my pitiful single-digit sneak skill to use and actually managed to sneak by. It helped that the section of the map the Bonewalker was in is out of the way and I didn't actually need to be anywhere near him. I also ran into a Bone Lord, which looked far more intimidating than it actually was. To be fair, blocking probably helped a lot. The last enemy in this tunnel is this very ripped dreamer. He was extremely formidable, so much so that I didn't fight him. I ran by him, and outside? Where am I? I thought I was supposed to find a shield, not the great outdoors. Did I take a wrong turn at Albuquerque? There's a corporate stalker out here, but it's pretty easy to deal with. It really felt, though, that I wasn't supposed to be here, so I went back inside and found a different door where my death by Fire Atronach was inevitable. Also, as a side note, I'm pretty sure Fire Atronachs don't speak, and I heard stupid as I died. It was my character all along calling me stupid for letting her die. Anyway, when I was able to fight the Fire Atronachs one at a time, I handled them with ease, followed by a couple of Ash Slaves and finally a Dagoth Priest. Atop a stone nearby was Shadow Shield, another token that I needed. This had invisibility for 20 seconds on it, which, while less useful than Chameleon as any action breaks the spell, is still really useful. All I needed now was a cup of House Dagoth. I retraced my steps until I was outside, fighting all manner of beasts on the way. I didn't find the cup in the big house, so I'm assuming it's in one of the smaller ones out here, but I remembered one of those smaller houses had that Cthulhu-looking monster. The problem is, I didn't remember which. I mean, knowing my luck, likely both, but either way I stepped foot into one and it was just a Dagoth Priest. Actually lucky for me, I found the cup in this house. With proof in hand that I am in fact a powerful warrior, I return to Sul Matul, who is impressed and reveals the third trial. I am to seek out the Cavern of the Incarnate and look for the moon and star. However, the cavern's location is a secret and only known to those who can unravel a riddle. The eye of the needle lies in the teeth of the wind. The mouth of the cave lies in the skin of the pearl. The dream is a door and the star is a key. Sul Matul says the riddle is Wisdom's test to coincide with the test of strength. So I guess that means he won't just give me the answer, huh? Of course, I immediately go to Nibani, but she unfortunately says she won't help me either. However, she's willing to give me a little bit of information about the final line of the riddle. The dream is a door and the star is a key. Basically, the star is the key is sort of literal. I mean, not that you can use the star as a key, but it's referring to Azura's star, which means the door will only open when Azura's star is visible in the sky at dawn and dusk. That's great. I still don't know where to go. I spoke with a random person in the tribe about the Teeth of the Wind section of the riddle, and they said that they know of no place with that name, but there is a place called Erin's Teeth in the Valley of the Wind. The teeth are 2 rock spires at the entrance of the valley named after Erin, one blessed by Azura. Yeah, that's probably it. The Valley of the Wind lies far to the east, and there are actually 2 valleys side by side. The one I want is the easternmost one. So I set off, but I'm literally on the other side of a mountain, and in the back of my head, I'm still worried I'll run into more greater Bonewalkers or anything that can reduce my strength. So I end up using a Divine Intervention scroll and start shopping around for either Restore Strength potions or the spell variant. In doing so, I happen across Sirloin Wee, who happens to have Mark and Recall. Admittedly, I save scummed this in case I was wrong and could get my septums back, but I figured I would place a mark here and then warp somewhere else and use Recall to see if it does what I hope it would do. Unfortunately, I had low chances of success with my cast. Fortunately though, there is a bed I can use right here. Oh, so I guess NPCs just don't help if you're being attacked by a literal faceless monster. Good to know. Eventually the mark spell worked and I hopped over to Balmora and began casting Recall. Oh my god, I can teleport. Why did they not keep this spell in Oblivion? I mean, they implemented fast travel, that's probably why, but like, why? It's so helpful! With this, I made my way all the way back to the Ursulaku camp and cast Mark, making Nibani's hut my home away from home. Then I began my journey east, determined to find the Cavern of the Incarnate. What follows is about an hour of me being lost. I had directions to get to the valley, but made one fatal mistake. See, the tribesmen told me that the valley lies east of Zerganapal. That's great, because that is marked on my map, so I had at least that much information to go on. What isn't great is what I did when I got there. I went south around the rune, which sounds harmless, right? Well, haha, wrong. Look at this map. Do you see this deep ravine running the length of Red Mountain? I thought it was that, so I ran all the way down and all the way back up this place looking for some magical doorway that only shows up twice a day. I didn't find it. Did find some weird magic fence thing, but probably not important. Anyway, see this tiny little rut barely big enough to be called a crack, let alone a valley? Yeah. Want to take a guess where the Valley of Wind is? In fact, I left the ravine I was in and ended up in the Grazelands. It's only after looking closely at the map that I realized that there are two valleys side by side east of Zerganapal. The good thing, I guess, is that I got a bunch of experience out of the like hundreds of cliff racers I murdered. Eventually, after circling all the way around, I jumped over a cliff face and landed in a valley, and at one end are two massive stone pillars jutting from the ground. I had found it. I think. So I waited until dawn, and nothing. Dusk? Nothing. Am I in the wrong place? I waited for several days, but nothing happened. To be fair, I didn't really know what to expect, but I kind of thought a magical portal would open between the pillars or something. You know, a grandiose welcome for the Nerevarine. At some point I started walking, and at the end of this pathway I found the Cavern of the Incarnate. That is a lot less magical than I was expecting. I was still within the time frame, so I was able to get in, and there I saw it, a big statue, probably Azura, holding the Ring of the Moon and Star. As soon as I touch it, I'm sent to the early 2000s with a cutscene, but it's a ring that fortifies personality and speechcraft by 5 points each, but more importantly, lore-wise, only the Nerevarine can wear this ring, so it's indisputable proof that I am in fact the Incarnate. Oh, Azura also says I'm the Nerevarine, so, that's proof too. She also poses the next two trials. The 4 Ashlander clans must recognize me as Nerevarine, and the 3 great houses as Hortator. After the cutscene is over, I'm surrounded by ghosts, the ghosts of those that have failed before me. I speak with all of them and they tell me their stories as well as giving me pieces of equipment. Unfortunately, I was kinda full of gear already, but one of the things I was given was the travel-stained pants, which have a levitate on self enchantment. Probably super useful to keep, so I made some room. I returned to Nibani via instant transmission and asked about being Nerevarine. She elaborates that there are 4 Ashlander tribes, the Ursulaku, the Emusa, the Zainab, and the Arabaninsum. I need to seek out their Ashcons and prove myself as Nerevarine. She tells me first to go to Sul-Matul, as he is my friend and will surely grant me the honor. Before doing that though, he wishes to give me counsel. He tells me that once I am declared as Nerevarine, my life will change. Friends may heed the word of the temple and call me heretic. It would be wise to do any business with them before championing the title. He also advises that I seek the counsel of Nibani about the other Ashlander tribes. They may have specific customs in mind and it would be wise to know them before attempting to persuade them to name me Nerevarine. With this, I ask him to name me Ursulaku Nerevarine, and he does so with a smile of someone who is an old friend and not someone I just gave a few hundred gold to like a week ago. He hands me the Teeth of the Ursulaku amulet and wishes me well on my destined path. Nibani then gives me guidance on the 4 Ashlander tribes, which is the 5th trial, but I actually forgot to ask her about the 4th trial, though they are much the same. Thus kicks off what I consider to be the worst quest, or pairing of quests, at least execution-wise, where I need to go around convincing a large number of people that I'm in fact Dunmer Superman. It's specifically the 4th trial, the Great House half of the quest, that I don't like. I'll talk more about it when I start it, as I ended up going for the Ashcons first. So I journeyed far to the east, through sandstorms and past a multitude of enemies, both beast and otherwise, until I arrived at the humble Ahemusa tribe. Their wise woman, Sinamu Mirpal, is their Ashkan. Like last time, I simply barge in and greet the wise woman, but she quickly shuts me down, saying I have no manners and did not greet her Gulakans first. She tells me who they are, so I go say hi to them. I learn from them that the Ahemusa have needs, and if I wish to be named Ahemusa Niravarine, I have to fulfill them. Speaking with Sinemu again, it seems that Need is a safe haven from the brutal world. She requests that I travel north to Aldaedroth and clear out the Sheogorath worshippers that have taken up residence there. Once I do that, I return and escort her out there, and if she deems it a safe place, she will name me Ahemusa Niravarine. When I arrive, I hear the sound of fighting. That can't be good, and there is a wizard fighting an orc. As I was about to join in, the orc fell, but I noticed a slight bit of hesitation before my sword fell. Perhaps the wizard and his Bonewalker summon are not my enemies. After a time warp, I let them fight it out, and indeed I was not attacked on sight. I'd hoped they were friends, but as it turns out, Dolores says I am the false incarnate, a devil of lies, and then attacks me. I had already learned that wizards could run out of magicka, so my best bet was to just find a place to let the Bonewalker summon die out, then hopefully he would revive it and repeat that until he simply couldn't anymore. This ledge does the trick, I just wish my claymore were a tiny bit longer. While this plan worked, it made me very weary of what I might find inside of Aldaedroth, and I was right to be afraid. Immediately, I am met with an orc warrior with a dagger that has a paralysis enchantment, rendering me completely useless as I am hacked to pieces. With the use of potions, I am barely able to outlive this, but again, it does not bode well. However, I can't just ignore the enemies, I have to make this place safe. I'm not really sure what's going on, but there seem to be two factions here fighting each other, so I let them be, then another thing shows up, and of course it's immune to my weapon. I then check a different path, and there's more fighting. This time I just sit and wait for them to finish. They did, and then they finished me. This is going to take some finessing. I dipped back out the door, healed up to full, then used every strength boosting enchantment I had, as well as an enchanted weapon of my own to start with. This, plus the knowledge that I'm sure you've all been screeching at me in the comments that I can actually weave in and out of enemy attacks, allows me to take these two down and clear out the third wing of this rune. It connects back to the main chamber, and the two from before are still fighting, but that other being rushes me. The good news is that my enchanted weapons can hit it. The better news is that on death, it drops a glass claymore, which is literally twice as powerful as my steel one. Thanks, Golden Saint. I don't know what causes my attacks to knock down enemies, but I really like it. The claymore was honestly the most important part about this whole dungeon. It's a massive upgrade over my other weapon, but I also found this scamp merchant. I'm not sure if he is alive, if that makes the ruins safe or not, so I took no chances. These cultists are using bound weapons, but sometimes they would fail to cast, so they just ate my sword. And with that, the ruin is cleared of all enemies, so I return to Sanamu and ask her to come with me. She has water walking, which is nice, but we were attacked by a cliff racer. I wasn't able to reach it from the water, but then I remembered I could also fly, so it was no problem. Once I bring her to the inner chamber, she deems it as safe and rewards me with the title of Ahemusa Niravarine. At this point, I took a break from becoming the savior of the world and went on a shopping spree, or rather, I tried to. See, I figured greater bonewalkers would become an increasingly annoying threat, so I wanted to buy a bunch of restore strength potions, but I struggled to find any, and when I did, they were pretty weak. This is where I cast a lookup one final time and checked online to see what vendor sold the restore strength spell. I was able to buy one from Follis Andalor in Alderun. A slightly annoying thing is that apparently if you buy any of the restore attribute spells, you can spell make all of them. I happened across multiple vendors with the other ones like willpower and luck. Had I known that, I would have just bought that and then crafted my own. Either way, I make my own restore strength spell, 1 point for 50 seconds. It's cheaper to cast, a trick I pulled from Oblivion, also with a higher chance of success. So, worst case is I'll have to stand still for like 70 seconds, but I can live with that. Next, I warp back to Nibani, and I'm sure she's excited that I could literally appear at any moment next to her, and this time actually asks about the 4th trial, so my journal is updated with the Hortator half of the quests. I head east along the coast, then south through the Grazelands, where I encounter this absolutely hulking Kagoti. I was completely petrified that it would eat me alive. Well, that was anticlimactic. After much traveling, I find myself at the Zainab camp, where I speak with one of the clan. I tell her my story, and she says I should speak with Ashkan Kushad. He is a very curious man and would like to hear my story. Speaking with him, he has heard rumors of an outlander claiming to be Niravarine, but he admits such things must be lies. How can an outlander be Niravarine? Man, I sure thought this ring was supposed to make them believe me, but it seems he doesn't. I speak with the wise woman who provides me counsel. She says I should buy the Ashkan expensive shoes. What? Oh, I'm sorry, I did mishear her. She said exquisite shoes, not expensive. Well, okay then. The Zainab camp is actually in the middle of nowhere, almost more so than the Urshalaku, but it is close to the 4th and final camp, at least relatively. As such, I make the decision to leave a mark here, then set out on my quest for Air Jordans. I use the Scroll of Divine Intervention, which takes me to Wolverine Hall, which is extremely convenient as it's near the final Ashlander camp, Erebin. Wolverine Hall is also situated in Sadrith Mora, which is the home of House Telvanni, one of the 3 great houses I'll need to convince to let me be their president or whatever. So while I was here, I made this lady mad at me, then asked to join House Telvanni. I don't think I actually needed to join to become the Hortator, but, well, I didn't know what I was doing. Eventually, I just asked about it and told my story, requesting to be made Hortator, leader of House Telvanni. They said no. Well, to be more accurate, they said to speak with Master Aaron and told me where to find him. So I hop a couple boats until I get to Voss, then head west to Telvoss, the Tower of Aaron. I don't know where he was, but I guess as he is the master, he's probably important and high up. Thankfully, my pants let me fly. Joke about Taco Bell here. Master Aaron actually says he supports me becoming Hortator, which is great, but some of the other counselors are going to need convincing. My favorite is the one he tells me to kill. Because murder's funny. Disclaimer, YouTube, it is in fact not funny. He gives me the locations of the counselors and sends me on my way. The first one I stop at is Dratha. She gives me her support immediately, as well as 4 scrolls of summoning Golden Saint. Wow, that was easy. I also buy a pair of exquisite shoes while I'm in town for the not-so-modest Ashkan. Next I chat with Gothrin. This is the one I'm supposed to, relieve of their duty most immediately. I try and talk some sense into him, but he says he needs to speak with the other counselors first, and that's fair, so I leave him for now in the vain hope that I don't have to commit Elfside. For now, I decided to put a pin in the counselors, pun I suppose incoming in this case, and head down to the final Ashkan camp, Erebin. Yes, I know I've probably been pronouncing that wrong the whole time, but at least I'm inconsistently pronouncing it wrong. I spoke with a wise woman who told me their leader is a proud Ashlander who would never accept an Outlander as Nerevarine. The solution she proposed, surprise, was murder. Because there can't be a problem if there's no one to make problem, I guess. More specifically, what I'm supposed to do is murder the Ashkan and his loyal subordinates, then convince the Ashkan's peace-loving son Han Amu to name me Nerevarine. Would murdering his dad really make him want to name me his champion? I mean, talk about daddy issues. With my glass claymore, it's pretty easy. None of them pose a real threat, especially because I can land the first blow, which sometimes results in a mini stagger. Once they're all taken care of, I speak with Han Amu and he says he doesn't really want to be Ashkan. This is a bit problematic for us, but surprisingly the answer this time around is not murder, it's to give him the relics of his still warm-bodied father and his followers. This, somehow, teaches him various lessons like courage and hope and wisdom, and it's enough to make him agree to lead his people. So anyway, I am now 3 out of 4 tribes done and have the exquisite shoes for the final one. Before heading back though, I was fairly close to Tel Naga, so I figured I might as well see if I could also convince this Telvanni counselor to love me. At first, he was pretty standoffish. Then I gave him a bunch of money, and oh, would you look at that, another vote. This game really captured what it's like to work in Congress, didn't it? I had a bunch of loot on me, and my pockets were feeling a little tight, so I figured I would hop around and try and sell things, which I realized is way harder than it should be, as no merchant has enough gold to take my insanely expensive items. Either way, this led me back to Belmora, and I ended up asking about the Halalu counselor so I could be their Hortator. I was given a book and told to read, but also the advice that I should seek out Crassius Curio and Vivek first. He says he'll vote for me to be Hortator for the small sum of 1,000 septums. Yikes. Well, it's for the greater good, I suppose, so I go ahead and pay him, securing his vote, and he so graciously also offers advice on the other counselors and how to handle them. Telbanora wasn't super far away via taxi, so I popped over there to speak with Thorana, who, likes spiders and sleeping? I also wasn't completely sure if there was something special here, but money has proven effective so far, so I bribe her, then stubbornly listen repeatedly, getting nowhere. I bribe her a tiny bit more, continue to listen stubbornly, then she finally recognizes my request and I have her vote. Then I made my way over to Alderaan and asked about the final of the 3 houses, House Redoran, which I kept misreading as House Radon. I was once again given a book of addresses. So I kinda don't like this quest, the 4th trial I mean. Taking a step back, the whole quest is complete the 4th trial, but it can then be broken down into become Hortator of the 3 great houses, and even further broken down into get 6 people in each house to like you and vote for you. It makes sense. You can't just show up at some powerful club and demand to be president. You'll have to persuade or bribe or do favors. But in execution, it's just not fun. Their tasks aren't difficult, but maybe that's part of the problem. Raising disposition is fine if you actually have speechcraft points, then you can roleplay that you sweet-talked your way in, but otherwise it's just pay gold. And in the case of someone like Curio, it's literally just give him gold. Maybe the bigger issue though is the running around. For House Telvanni, at least, all of the counselors are split up, just drastically increasing the time to get there. And as much as I love the world of Vvardenfell, it's really not fun to just walk that much. Walking to and from the place once, sure, okay, whatever, but walking in a zigzag pattern across country? No. To be fair though, that's also partially my fault. I have no idea how to efficiently navigate the world, so I just stumbled everywhere. Still, I think it was a bit much and I did not like it. The 5th trial's Ashcons are a bit better because they are centralized to their specific camp and you don't have to venture too far, or even if you do, Mark plus Recall means it's a non-issue as you don't have to jump between multiple locations. Anyway, the Redoran counselors are all located in Alderaan, so it's not that bad. I tried talking to a couple of them, but they either thought I was lying, again, why do I even have this ring, or I ran out of money trying to make them like me. Which is extra bad considering I need money to, you know, do everything else like repair my weapons and buy potions. I then spoke with Athan Serethi, who actually does believe me, at least more so than the others, and says he will support me as long as I do him a favor. Okay, well, I have no money, so what is it? His son, Varver, is apparently being held in Venom Manor. I need to break him out and not ask why he's locked up. Bolvin Venom, head of the Venom Manor, is another counselor I need to convince, but much like the war-loving Erebin and some people, he would never name an Outlander Hortator. Okay, that's another problem I'll need to solve, but one thing at a time. Athan told me that his son is allegedly being held in the right wing, and after some looking around, I found a hidden door behind a tapestry. Fortunately for me, I still had one more scroll of Ondaci's unhinging. I sure hope I don't need to open any other locked doors in this playthrough. The first time I successfully opened it, the nearby guard actually didn't notice me doing that, but as we attempted to leave, she was like, "Hey wait, that guy's supposed to be locked up! Time to die!" I murdered her, but then realized that that would probably make it very difficult to get out of the manor in one piece, but also I can't afford to pay the fines. So I rewound time, opened the door again, and this time around being detected, but I used Shadow Shield's invincibility enchant to walk out of there without an issue. I reunite father and son, thus gaining Anthan's support, and more importantly his promise that he will use his influence to try and convince the other counselors. However, even if he can't get most of them, the issue will be Bolvin, who hates Outlanders. Fortunately, if you can say that, if all the other counselors support me, he might agree to a duel. This is actually good news. As per terms of the duel, both parties ask for compensation, me as Hortator and him probably telling me to leave and never return. If I win by him admitting defeat, he is honor bound to hold up the agreement and name me Hortator. If I win by killing him, then it doesn't matter and I am Hortator. But before I do that, I kinda wanted to just wrap up the final Ashcon camp. No real reason, I just kinda wanted to take a break and figured if all I had to do was pass off some shoes, it would be easy. So I recall back to the camp, then speak with Kushand, who says never in his life has he seen a finer pair of kicks than these, and it instantly maxes out his disposition. Nice. I ask about being the Nerevarine, and he says he's heard the rumors, but how can an Outlander be the chosen one? Sure, yeah, okay, then how about you give me a task so I can prove it? In an almost half-joking manner, he tells me to go to a nearby tomb and kill a vampire that resides there. Alright, one Vampire Slayer quest. I'm immune to all diseases already, so that's fine. And it's next to a Dwemer rune, which probably has some high-value items in it, so I can make back some of the gold I lost trying to bribe the local politicians. Inside is a greater bone walker, but I am no longer afraid of them. They have no power here. The vampire does, though. I don't know what spell he had, but as long as I didn't let him touch me, it wasn't a problem. Super easy quest, no issues at all. Like I said, I wanted to stop by those runes, and I hadn't realized it yet, but gems, like diamonds and stuff, weigh next to nothing and are worth multiple hundreds of septums. That's perfect for me, or anyone exploring really, but how come they have effects? Are they alchemical ingredients? Do you eat diamonds in this game? Whatever, I return to Kashan and tell him that I took care of the vampire, and I expected him to name me Nerevarine, but instead he had another quest, and I did not see this one coming. See, what he said was that he would be happy to name me Nerevarine. Okay, great, but it's customary for one seeking an honor to offer a gracious gift. I guess those shoes weren't enough. But what he asked for, and I'm quoting him here, is a high-born Telvanni bride, a pretty one, plump, with big hips, to bear him many sons. My man. No idea how I'm gonna pull that off, but respect. I spoke to the wise woman who told me that there is no shot a high-born Telvanni would wed an Ashlander, so her plan was instead to buy a slave who will pretend to be whatever the Ashcon wants. The slave mistress is in Tellarune, which is conveniently where the last Telvanni councilman is. Well, when in town, right? Problem, he's flanked by not one, but two Dremora guards? I guess that's what they are. They attacked me as soon as I hit him. They aren't actually terribly strong, but he has a paralysis spell that just forces me to stand there and take the beating, unable to act before my life slips away. So my plan was to chug a Fortify Strength potion and hopefully high roll on damage to one-shot a Dremora instantly. That didn't happen, but I somehow held on while at the brink of death, then used Shadow Shield to cloak myself for a moment. Once they were a bit away, I drank some potions which restored my health but revealed my location. At this point, Gothred and the other Dremora had returned, but the tight space actually helped as I was able to make it more or less a one-on-one and somehow managed to pull through. Weirdly, the other NPCs didn't attack me or even acknowledge what I did. All that's left then is to talk to Erin, but first I need that bride-to-be. Savile tells me that she has a pretty Dunmer woman who she can train to act like a highborn Telvanni, but she also needs to look the part, so I need to go buy some exquisite clothes. I do exactly that in return, and now she looks the part, but we need a little something more. And what is that, you ask? Well, Telvanni bug musk, of course. As gross as that sounds, it fortifies personality by a whopping 40 points. I actually bought 2 in case I need one for any reason. That takes care of the preparations. But I still need to actually buy the slave, which feels wrong. I felt wrong to buy a slave. There's probably a way to break her out, like with lockpicking, but I'm sure that would make everything hostile, so I just feel gross about it instead. I escort her all the way back to the Zynobe camp, and I do mean escort because recall doesn't work. I tried, and when we arrive, she seems happy with Kashan, so that's good I guess. I feel a little less bad if she's content with this life. Anyway, Kashan is also pleased, though he notes that she is not as generous in the hips as he would like. Again, my man, but nonetheless, he names me Neverine, and with that I am War Leader Chief of all 4 Ashlander camps. He also gave me a thong. Thanks. Since I'd already taken care of the Telvanni counselors, I headed back to Telvanni to speak with Erin, who also named me the Telvanni Hortator, 1 down and 2 to go. I then wanted to travel to the Urshulaku camp for 2 reasons. 1, so I could make sure to tell Nibani that I had completed the 5th trial in case I'd unlocked something else to do while I was out, and 2, so I could place a mark and warp back there easily. Unfortunately, on my way, I ran out of flight pants charge and misjudged the distance to the ground. This sent me all the way back to just before Erin named me Hortator, which for you guys is like, what, 37 seconds? For me it was about 40 minutes as I ran around doing some miscellaneous selling of goods, cross-country hiking. Second time, I am much more careful with my flight patterns and make it there in one piece. At this point, I return to Alderaan, where I speak with the remaining Redoran counselors, none of which have an issue with me being named Hortator, well, except for one. Bolvin Venom, who refuses to name me Hortator, claiming I have played tricks on the others. He says he will stop my foolish ambitions in the arena in Vivec. There we shall duel to the death. Conveniently, Vivec is where I need to go next anyway, so I accept his challenge and step into the ring. It's a bloody fight to the bitter end, but just as the prophecy foretold, I'm not dying here. Oh, a Daedric Daikatana, don't mind if I do. And he's got a lot of ebony armor, makes me wish I took heavy armor as a skill. This pretty much takes care of Redoran, minus actually being named Hortator, so let's move on to Hlaalu. My first problem was that every location I was given, I was unfamiliar with. The directions were there, but they weren't super helpful. In fact, for Drambaro, everyone I asked says that they don't know where he lives, but they've seen him in St. Olms. Which I find hard to believe. I've been wandering around this place looking at everyone and no one is named Drambaro. There is a locked door in a haunted house, but it's locked with a level 50 lock, so I don't know if I can open it without some kind of fortified security ability. I did, however, find the Yingling Half-Troll, which is a counselor Kuro recommended I just kill, but I want to be diplomatic. Oh, he wants 2,000 septims. Murder it is. This was a tough one. Every time I attacked him, he would pull out a paralysis dagger, and the 3 dudes in the other room would jump in the fun. Fortunately, I am cunning. What I did was attack him, then stand against the slightly open door. This caused the other enemies to kind of file in one at a time, but not in a way that let them all in, and I easily took them out. Back to looking for Drambaro, and it occurred to me several people said, on top of St. Olms. I took that literally, but he's not up here. I got tired of searching and figured I would try the other counselors. I didn't know where a couple of them were, but east out of the Telvanni Plaza was enough to go off of. That led me to Valinda Omani, who was not interested in naming me Hortator. Curio did warn me that she and Navena Ulis are in Orvis Drin's pocket, so finding him first would be the smart play. Doing so was easier said than done. He has a plantation. Okay, where? I walked all around this place, going in a massive clockwise circle. It took me like half an hour to find it, but to be fair, that's because I was stopped by Terrace, who wanted help to get to Vivec, and I was like, yeah, I could use the money. Anyway, when I do finally find Orvis Drin, I tell him my goal is to defeat Dagoth-Ur and bring peace to Morrowind. He didn't like that, he attacks me. Curio did say that there were rumors he had ties to the 6th house? I didn't want to believe it, but that's probably why he's trying to skewer me. Oh, he's got some good stuff on his shelves, like Daedric armor that I can't wear or even carry, so it just stays there. Here, something strange happened. See, he had a level 50 locked and trapped drawer. I began attempting to remove the trap with a probe, and then someone wants to fight, but they never came. I checked the bodyguard, but he's doing nothing, so I don't know. Also, I don't remember where I picked up a master lockpick, but I had one, and when I use Caius' ring, it brings my security up by 20 points, which is not more than 50, but it somehow is enough. I don't know how the security skill works. Inside was almost 800 gold, and a skull, that's not creepy at all, but hey, money. But something was still trying to kill me, and that's when I found it, the basement. Behind 2 locked and trapped doors that I opened with a key that was on the previously mentioned desk are 2 men that are super deadly and murder me almost instantly. Resist and cure paralysis would have been a super handy investment, I'm learning. After a couple dozen tries, I managed to kill them and began looting the basement. There's some good stuff down here, like some grand soul gems, oh yeah, and a total of 10,000 septums. I got 99 problems and money ain't one. I still need to find Navenna, Ellis, and Drambero. Navenna is somewhere near Saran, but where the heck is Saran? I've never heard of that place, and it's not something I can speak about with people. After about 15 more minutes of walking, I see a silt strider in the distance and wonder if the cabbie can help me, but surprise, I don't need him to, because this is Saran. I'm not really mad, maybe a tiny bit annoyed that it was the name of a major settlement, but whatever, I found it and that's all that matters. At any rate, following the directions in my journal, I find Navenna, who I'm pretty sure is scared of me because Drin is dead and she probably knows it was me. But honestly, I don't really care if that's the case. She casts her vote for me to be Hortator, same with Omani, which just leaves Drambero. This time I take a real good look around the haunted place, as it's like one of 3 places left to check, and the only one that doesn't have a guy standing in the room, making it awkward to pick my way through a locked door. I take a nap in the bed and get assaulted by an ash slave. That's not really important. What is important is on this little nightstand thing is a master probe and master lockpick. Now let me give you a game dev secret. Smart developers want to give their players the tools to access content. They don't want to stop you from exploring their game, so sometimes they put the tools necessary to progress nearby. This lockpick, the scrolls and the secret of the Vatican quest and Oblivion, that sort of thing. Granted, my skill is so low I don't think I could pick this without Caius' ring, but I kept that as it's another tool the game gave me. Since this was here, I figured it was important, and lo and behold, Mr. Drambero. He congratulates me on finding him and says I can go talk to Curio about being named Halu Hortator. I do just that, then return to Anthen in Alderun, where I'm also named Redoran Hortator, bringing an end to the 4th trial. Anthen also hands over a couple of notes from the temple. This can't be good. The first is a public notice. The temple has branded me an outlaw, saying I am an Imperial spy and falsely claiming to be the Nerevarine. If I am seen in public, I am to be arrested. The second is a note from the Archcanon. It would seem Vivek would like to meet with me. Wait, Vivek? Like the counselor that Nerevar spoke with back in the day? You know, what I would assume is like several hundred years ago? Am I missing some important piece of lore here? Well, anyway, Vivek wants to meet with me because I have passed the first 5 trials and it can no longer be denied, even by the temple, those that brand me heretic, that I might actually be the incarnate, and if that's true, it would mean the world is in a perilous place as it signals Dagoth Ur's return to form. Because the temple outright denies my existence, and should I exist, that I am the bad guy, I need to secretly meet with the Archcanon Saroni. I return to Nibani for a little more advice, and she confirms I have been named Hortator and Nerevarine. Now I must move on to the 6th and 7th trial. I am to go to Saroni and demand to speak with the false god Vivek at okay, false god, yep, Vivek is important. Anyway, speak with Vivek and get Kagranak's tools from him. In order to actually meet with the Archcanon, and by extension Vivek, I need to present myself to Danso Indolus, who is just standing out in the open. He explains that the Archcanon is in his private quarters, but I must avoid confrontations with the Ordinators at all cost. Fortunately, they have been told I will be visiting him, so they aren't going to attack me on sight for being Nerevarine, but should I break any laws, they will not hesitate to place me under arrest. The private quarters are in the southern half of the East Chapel of the High Fane, but there are Ordinators guarding both entrances. However, there is a back entrance. Not much else to go on, so I climb the only chapel-looking structure, and it's Vivek's temple. Trying to cut in line there, I guess. I then realize that there are 2 doors, one on either side of Danso, east and west, with Ordinator theirs, and it is marked as High Fane. I go in and see a level 45 locked door on the east side, southern wall. Then I use that little local map trick to see that there is a door that would take me to the Hall of Wisdom, or, to put it another way, a door in the Hall of Wisdom that would lead me to this room. I wanted to be extra sure though, so I blatantly tried to pick the lock, resisted arrest, got slapped in the back by a sword a few times until I got inside and could see Sayori was right there. So once again, I turned back the sands of time and went into the Hall of Wisdom. Tucked away in a little corner was another locked door, this time level 50, but I already knew I could get into those. Pick the lock, talk to Saroni. He states that the temple has reached a crisis with Dagoth Ur and can no longer defend the people against the 6th house. He and the temple have correctly, or at least in theory correctly, assumed that I and the prophecies might be their last hope. As such, he requests that I meet with Vivek post-haste, and I agree. So, I ascend the stairs once more and meet with God King Vivek. Going into this, I had no idea what to expect. I knew nothing of this game and lore of Morrowind, or lore of the series really, so it's tough to put into words what happened. I'll do my best though. First, a retelling is in order. First, Vivek recognizes me for who I am, the Nerevarine, and proposes to remove the curse upon the name and the persecution of the dissident priests, then proclaimed all of Morrowind that I, level 0, am the incarnate and Nerevarine, prophesied savior of Morrowind and the last hope against Dagoth in the 6th house. After that, he will give me a powerful artifact that will aid me in defeating Dagoth Wraithguard. And then I swear an oath to all that I will defeat Dagoth and uphold the preservation of Morrowind and its people. He distorts time in order to allow me the ability to actually use Wraithguard, then wishes to teach me 2 things: how to use it and how to defeat Dagoth. The plan is simple, yet incredibly dangerous. I am to go to Red Mountain and recover 2 artifacts, the Hammer Sunder and the Blade Keening, then together with Wraithguard, delve into the Temple of Dagoth. There I will locate the Heart of Lorkhan and use the 3 artifacts to sever Dagoth connection to the heart, then destroy him. Strike the heart with the hammer once, then with Keening as many times as needed until it is destroyed. I must do this while wearing Wraithguard, otherwise the artifacts will kill me. Vivek talks a bit more about Dagoth and his plans, but also points me to the copies of the text he brought in from the library. They are about the battle plans and the common telling of what happened at Red Mountain all those years ago, and Vivek's own personal account of what happened. This is very important stuff, and I feel bad glossing over most of it, but I'm partially afraid I won't be able to get it all correct in my retelling. Vivek's side of the story was that the Chimer, which are the current day Dunmer, were at war with the Dwemer as the 2 factions worship different gods. The Daedra and Reason and Logic, respectively. But then the Nords showed up and the 2 sides joined forces to drive them from the land. In doing so, Nerevar and Dumak, the general of the Dwemer, became friends and it brokered peace between the 2 races. But Dagoth discovered the Dwemer had the Heart of Lorkhan and were somehow tapping into it to build a second god. He urged Nerevar to confront them, so he did, and Dumak was offended. Nerevar then sought counsel from the Daedric Prince Azura, and she confirmed what Dagoth had said. So ultimately, the 2 sides went to war, and when Nerevar, Dagoth and a few elite soldiers infiltrated the compound, High Engineer of the Dwemer Kagranak used the tools on the heart hastily, and in that moment, all Dwemer vanished in an instant. Dagoth suggested that the tools be destroyed, but Nerevar sought counsel with his trusted advisors and asked Dagoth to stay in Red Mountain and protect the tools until he returned. The councilmen urged him to keep the tools so that they could be studied in case the Dwemer ever returned. Nerevar agreed as long as they swore an oath to him and Azura to never use them the way that the Dwemer did, then he would allow the tools to be kept. But when they went to retrieve them, Dagoth was acting strangely, and ultimately fighting ensued. They thought Dagoth destroyed, but he merely fled deeper into Red Mountain. Then they retrieved the tools. The councilmen swore to uphold the oath Nerevar said, but surprise, one of them studied the tools in secret and unlocked the powers of the divine. Then they convinced the other 2 that they should all be God King protectors of the realm. So the 3 gave themselves the power of divinity. In that moment, Azura showed up and said Nerevar would return to fulfill his oath. And Sotha Sil said to Azura, and I'm quoting here, "The old gods are cruel and arbitrary, and distant from the hopes and fears of Myr. Your age is past. We are the new gods, born of the flesh and wise and caring of the needs of our people. Spare us your threats and chiding, inconsistent spirit. We are bold and fresh and will not fear you." And in that moment, all Chimer were changed to Dunmer with skin of ash and eyes of fire. Azura looked upon them and spoke, "This is not my act, but your act. You have chosen this fate and the fate of your people, and all the Dunmer shall share your fate. From now to the end of time, you think yourselves gods, but you are blind, and all is darkness." At first, the Dwemer were scared of their new faces, but the councilmen were able to spin it as a blessing, not a curse. So the lives of the Dunmer continued in peace, but an evil stirred under Red Mountain, a darkness, and as that darkness grew, they fought it, crafted walls to confine it, but could never destroy it. The darkness was the same source as the source of their own divine inspiration, the Heart of Lorkhan. There's a lot more going on in these texts, like more detail, but when I was sitting and reading and learned how the Dunmer used to be the Chimer and that Azura cursed them for literally playing God, and that's how they came to have ash skin and red eyes, I don't know. I was amazed, floored. I'm not sure how to describe it, but you know when you get goosebumps on your skin and hair stands on end? Yeah, that. I leave Vivek's temple and begin making my way towards Red Mountain on my final quest to kill the mad god and friend of ages past, Dagoth. I braved the Ghost Gate and the horrors within, but while fighting my way through the blighted monsters, I had a thought. This is going to be a long one, so keep with me here. In Morrowind, you play the Child of Prophecy, and it's your ninja way to save the world. Okay, sorry, I couldn't resist that joke when I said Child of Prophecy, but seriously, in Morrowind, you are the Nerevarine, the one who is destined to defeat Dagoth and protect the world. Skip forward a bit to Skyrim, and dragons have returned, but don't worry, with them comes the Dragonborn, destined hero that will save the land. You, the player, are the hero of legend. In Oblivion, you're just a guy who was in the right place at the right time. Okay, hear me out. Say Oblivion opens the same. You make a character, the guards come down. What's this prisoner doing here? The Emperor seen you in his dreams, all that. Then you fight through the tutorial, eventually getting to the room where you're supposed to protect the Emperor and the assassin jumps out. Only this time, not only does he take out Uriel's septum, but as you don't really know how to defend yourself, you as well. Baris rushes in and crumples by the Emperor's side, but in a final dying breath, Uriel says, "Baris, take the amulet to Joffrey. He knows of my other son." Blech. So Baris does just that. He goes to Joffrey, who points him to Kvatch. He goes and rescues Martin. He infiltrates the Mythic Dawn and recovers Mysterium Xarxes. He enters Paradise and rips the amulet from Mankar's still warm hands, and he escorts Martin to the Temple of the One, where of course Martin saves the world by casting Dagon back into Oblivion. Martin is the main character, and the player character is just some guy. The hero of Kvatch and a champion of Cyrodiil to be sure, but just some guy. Heck, there's an alternate universe where freaking Valen Dreth is the hero, and that is a wild timeline, but still. The player character is not some prophesized hero, he's just a dude that happened to be there. And there's nothing wrong with that either, nor is there anything really wrong with the fated hero type of story. They both have strong and weak points. I'm sure I'm not the first person to come to this realization, but either way, I would love to hear what you guys think about it in the comments. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, fighting the Blight and saving the world. Inside the Ghost Fence, my objective is to find 2 legendary artifacts, Sunder and Keening. They are protected by powerful ash vampires. On my way to the first citadel, I encountered a new enemy, a terrible and powerful alligator man. He had some strong spells that put me on the back foot, but it soon falls and it turns out it's a Daedroth. This one is way more deadly than his Oblivion counterpart. Inside the Viminal Citadel are powerful enemies. The Cthulhu monster in particular was quite deadly. In the innermost chamber, I find the ash vampire Dagoth Venom, and he is honestly not as hard as some of the other enemies here. Though really, I suppose I shouldn't be complaining about that. Also, I recognize this model as the same from earlier, so I wonder if that earlier one also had some good loot. Regardless, on his body is the legendary hammer Sunder, and when I say legendary, I mean it. It has insane buffs and damage. I wonder how good this weapon would be if I actually trained my blunt stat. Next is the Tower of Odrasol. As soon as I enter, a Golden Saint spots me, so I wait for her to come to me and I cut her down. Off to my side is a weakly locked door. I mean, it's only level 20, so I didn't expect a good loot inside, but I could open it with my master lockpick. Couple of potions and a chest and another zone. The tower that has Keening? This is a trick, right? One thing Vivek said is that if you use the tools without Wraithguard, you die, so in both cases I tested it and they killed me. This is the real Keening. Well, that was easy. Also, it doesn't have anywhere near the damage of Sunder, but it's also an insanely buffed weapon, making me wish I had stuck with Shortblade at the beginning, but oh well. With all 3 artifacts in my possession, it's time to descend to the deepest part of Red Mountain, then find and destroy the Heart of Lorkhan. What in the world is that thing? Honestly, I love the designs of some of these enemies. I hate that it took me like 20 years to see them. Oh, Dagoth beckons me. I did not expect that. He speaks several times as I get closer and closer, and the way he talks to me, like welcoming an old friend into their home, but I know the truth. He must be destroyed. Crussier of Saint Lothus. Damage health on self. Blind on self. Disintegrate armor on self. Why would you ever want this? Well, I don't, but that full set of glass armor looks pretty nice, finally letting me upgrade from the Dark Brotherhood set I've had since the beginning of my adventure. After fighting my way through the hordes of monsters, I find him. Dagoth but he didn't attack me, he welcomed me. I was able to speak with him, and I noticed that he had no disposition meter, so I guess charming him with money then stabbing him in the back were out of the question. Either way, he asked me some things, whether I was truly Nerevarine or not, asked me if I were to win this confrontation what would I do, make myself a god, complete Akulik Khan, the false god he's building, or share the heart. Lastly, he asked if I would join him had he offered. Of course I tell him no, he has journeyed far from the hero's path and now we are at odds. There can be no more friendship. After he was done asking his questions, I was able to ask some of my own. For example, what he plans to do if he wins, how he will atone for the sins of what he's done, and so on. Once we asked and answered our questions, he said he awaits my first blow, and that was a lie. He nearly immediately attacks me. Unfortunately, he is just too strong and the hero falls. Except, of course, time powers. This time round, though, my blade is sure and true, and the Lord of the Sixth House is no more. Is what I thought, but he is reborn in the heart chamber. A fool I was, he is immortal. A man cannot kill a god. Inside the room is a towering machine, a Kulikan. I didn't know what to do here, so I started running. I jumped from the ledge, able to levitate, and Dagoth followed me, but he fell into the lava below. A lucky break, I thought, and then I saw it. The heart of Lorkhan. I approached with Sunder, strike once, and then cut with Keening, but Dagoth had somehow reappeared, and once again, the hero falls. Well, let's just do the time warp again. This time, I destroyed the heart, and immediately realized what that truly meant. Dagoth is mortal. So, with the final bit of strength I could muster, on a bridge over the lake of lava, I swung with all my might and cast down the false god into the fiery pits below, saving Morrowind from the blight and darkness of ages past. A Kulikan crumbled, and as I ascended out of the cavern, I am greeted by Azura herself, who tells me the prophecy of the Nerevarine has been fulfilled. But Morrowind will still have its villains and will need a protector. So, is Morrowind good and worth playing even decades after its release? Yes, absolutely. In a single playthrough, Morrowind has become one of my favorite games. It is a bit dated, and while I do think that that adds to the charm, it is fair if you don't like those mechanics, things like hit chance and such, that you wouldn't like the game, but if you can see past that, this is one of the best gaming experiences I've had in a while. The world is just so alien and amazing, the quest writing is phenomenal, even if sometimes the actual quests themselves are just, go kill a thing. But I can't knock that too hard, we still have go kill a thing quests in modern gaming anyway. If you were to play it, I would highly recommend using OpenMW. I'm not sure if there are other projects that let you play it on modern hardware, but OpenMW is phenomenal. Also, if it's your first time, you should either play it completely vanilla like I did, or maybe with 2 mods. One for fast travel with the caveat that you should absolutely walk everywhere the first time you need to go there, and the other one to stop fatigue drain while just running around the world. There's a case to be made to not use that for the full experience, but honestly, once you realize you need fatigue, you either just stop and stand still for a minute or wait before every battle. It's kinda just tedious. I guess alchemy and fatigue potions could help, but still. This was an absolute blast, and I'm so glad I could play it and share it with all of you. If you have any suggestions for games that I should play, don't forget to tell me because there are a lot that I missed growing up, but until next time my friends, much love and have a good one.